The Seven Tables of Creation by Leonard William King. The Preface.
Perhaps no section of Babylonian literature has been more generally studied than the legends which record the creation of the world. On the publication of the late Mr. George Smith's work, The Chaldean Account of Genesis, which appeared some 27 years ago, it was recognized that there was in the Babylonian account of the creation, as it existed in the 7th century before Christ, much which invited comparison with the corresponding narrative in the book of Genesis. It is true that the Babylonian legends which had been recovered and were first published by him were very fragmentary, and that the exact number and order of the tablets, or sections, of which they were composed were quite uncertain, and that although they recorded the creation of the heavens and of the heavenly bodies, they contained no direct account of the creation of man. In spite of this, however, their resemblance to the Hebrew narrative was unmistakable, and in consequence, they at once appealed to a far larger circle of students than would otherwise have been the case. After the appearance of Mr. Smith's work, other scholars produced translations of the fragments which he had published, and the names of Oppert, Schrader, and Sayce will always be associated with those who were the first to devote themselves to the interpretation of the creation legends. Moreover, new fragments of the legends have from time to time been acquired by the trustees of the British Museum, and of these the most important is the fine text of the 4th tablet of the Creation series, containing the account of the fight between the god Marduk and the dragon Tiamat, which was published in 1887 by Dr. Wallace Budge and translated by Professor Sayce in the same year. Professor Sayce's translation of the creation legends marked a distinct advance upon those of his predecessors, and it was the most complete, inasmuch as he was enabled to make use of the new tablet which restored so much of the central portion of the story. In the year 1890, in his important work Die Cosmologie der Babylonier, Professor Jensen of Marburg gave a translation of the legends together with a transliteration and commentary. In 1895, Professor Zimmern of Leipzig translated all the fragments then known, and a year later, Professor Delitzsch of Berlin also published a rendering. Finally, 2 years ago, Professor Jensen issued a new and revised translation of the creation legends. In the opening pages of the first part of his work, Mython and Epon, the second part of which, containing his notes and commentary, appeared some months ago. In the course of the year 1900, the writer was entrusted with the task of copying the texts of a number of Babylonian and Assyrian legends for publication in the series of cuneiform texts from Babylonian tablets, etc., in the British Museum. And, among the documents selected for issue, were those relating to the creation of the world. Several of the texts of the creation legends, which had been used by previous translators, had never been published, and one tablet, which Mr. George Smith had consulted in 1876, had not been identified by subsequent workers. During my work, I was so fortunate as to recognize this tablet, and was enabled to make copies of all the texts, not only of those which were previously known, but also of a number of new duplicates and fragments which I had meanwhile identified. These copies appeared in Cuneiform Texts, Part 13, 1901, Plates 141. The most interesting of the new fragments there published was a tablet which restored a missing portion of the text of the 2nd tablet of the Creation series, and of this, on account of its interest, I gave a translation in a note to the plate on which the text appeared. It was not my intention at that time to publish anything further upon the subject of the creation legends. While I was engaged, however, in searching for fragments of other Babylonian legends for publication officially, it was my good fortune to come across a fine duplicate of the 2nd tablet of the Creation series. A further prolonged search was rewarded by the finding of other fragments of the poem, and a study of these showed me that the earlier portions of the text of the creation story, as already known, could be considerably augmented. Among them, moreover, was a fragment of the poem which refers to the creation of man. This fragment is extremely important, for in addition to its valuable contents, it also settles the disputed question as to the number of tablets, or sections, of which the creation series was composed. In view of the additional information as to the form and contents of the poem which this new material afforded, it was clearly necessary that a new translation of the creation legends should be made, and this I undertook forthwith. The new fragments of the poem, which I had identified up to the summer of last year, are inscribed upon tablets of the Neo-Babylonian period. At the conclusion of the examination of tablets of this class, I lithographed the newly identified texts in a series of plates which are published in the second volume of the present work. These plates were already printed off when, at the beginning of the present year, after my return from Assyria, I identified a fresh group of fragments of the poem inscribed not upon Neo-Babylonian, but upon Assyrian tablets. At that time, I was engaged on making a detailed catalog or hand list of the smaller fragments in the various collections of Assyrian tablets from Kuyunjik, and, as a result of previous study of the legends themselves and of the Assyrian commentaries to the seventh tablet of the series, I was enabled to identify 10 new fragments of the poem, which are inscribed upon tablets from the library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh. In order to avoid upsetting the arrangement of the plates in Volume 2, the texts of the new Assyrian fragments are published by means of outline blocks in Appendices 1 and 2 to the present volume. Those who have studied the published text of the Creation series will remember that the material used by previous translators of the legends has consisted of some 21 tablets and fragments inscribed with portions of the poem. The number of new tablets and fragments belonging to the Creation series, which are here used and translated for the first time, reaches the total of 34. But as I have joined up 6 of these to other similar fragments, this total has been reduced to 28. Thus, in place of the 21 tablets previously known, 49 separate tablets and fragments have now been identified as containing portions of the text of the Creation series. The new information, furnished by the recently discovered material regarding the story of creation, may here be briefly summarized. Hitherto, our knowledge of the contents of tablets 1 and 2 of the series has been very fragmentary. After the narrative of the creation of the great gods in the opening lines of the poem and a fragmentary reference to the first symptoms of revolt exhibited by the primeval monsters, Apsu and Tiamat, and Mumu, the minister of Apsu, there occurred a great gap in the text, and the story began again with the account of how Tiamat prepared to wage war against the gods. Apsu and Mumu have at this point entirely disappeared from the narrative, and the ally of Tiamat is the god Kingu, whom she appoints to command her forces. What followed the creation of the great gods? What was the cause of the revolt? What was the fate of Apsu and Mumu? And what were the events which led up to Tiamat's preparations for battle are questions that have hitherto remained unanswered. We now know that the account of the creation of the gods was no fuller than that which has come down to us from Damascius. After the birth of Lakmu and Lakamu, Anshar and Kishar, Anu, Beli, Enlil or Ilil, and Ea, Nudimud, the text does not proceed to narrate in detail the coming forth of the lesser deities, but plunges at once into the story of the revolt of the primeval forces of chaos. We now know also that it was Apsu and not Tiamat who began the revolt against the gods, and that, according to the poem, his enmity was aroused not by the creation of light as has been previously suggested, but by the disturbance of his rest, in consequence of the new way of the gods, which tended to produce order in place of chaos. One of the most striking facts which the new fragments furnish with regard to the contents of the legends is the prominent part played by the god Ea in the earlier episodes of the story. After Apsu and Mumu had repaired to Tiamat and had hatched with her their plot against the gods, it was the god Ea who, abounding in all wisdom, detected their plan and frustrated it. The details of Ea's action are still a matter of uncertainty, but, as I have shown in the introduction, it is clear that Apsu and Mumu were overthrown and that their conqueror was Ea. Moreover, it was only after their downfall, and in order to avenge them, that Tiamat began her preparations for battle. She was encouraged in her determination by the god Kingu, and it was in consequence of the assistance he then gave her that she afterwards appointed him leader of her host. Another point which is explained by the new fragments concerns the repetitions in tablets 1, 2, and 3 of the lines containing the account of Tiamat's preparations for battle. The lines describing this episode are given no less than 4 times, in Tablet 1, in Tablet 2, and twice in Tablet 3. We now know that the first description of Tiamat's preparations occurs after the account of her determination to avenge her former allies, and in the second tablet, the lines are put into the mouth of Ea, who continues to play a prominent part in the narrative and carries the tidings to Anshar. How Anshar repeated the lines to Gaga, his messenger, and how Gaga delivered the message to Lakamu and Lakamu is already well known. Perhaps the most striking of all the new fragments of the poem here published is that which contains the opening and closing lines of the 6th tablet and, at last, furnishes us with a portion of the text describing the creation of man. Marduk is here represented as declaring to Ea that he will create man from his own blood, and from bone which he will form. It is important to note that the Assyrian word here used for bone, isimtu, which has not hitherto been known, corresponds to the Hebrew word esim, bone, which occurs in Gen 22:23 in connection with the account of the creation of woman. The text thus furnishes another point of resemblance between the Babylonian and the Hebrew stories of creation. The new fragment also corroborates in a remarkable degree the account given by Berosus of the Babylonian version of the creation of man. According to the writer's rendering of the passage, Marduk declares that he will use his own blood in creating mankind, and this agrees with the statement of Berosus that Bel directed one of the gods to cut off his, i.e., Bel's head, and to form mankind from his blood mixed with earth. This subject is discussed at length and in detail in the introduction, as well as a number of new points of resemblance between the Babylonian and the Hebrew accounts of the creation, which are furnished by other recently identified fragments of the poem. With regard to the extent and contents of the creation series, we now know that the tablets of which the series was composed are 7 in number, and we also possess the missing context or framework of the 7th tablet, which contains addresses to Marduk under his 50 titles of honor. From this, we learn that when the work of creation was ended, the gods gathered together once more in Upshukinak-ku, their council chamber. Here they seated themselves in solemn assembly and proceeded to do honor to Marduk the creator by reciting before him the remarkable series of addresses which form the contents of the last tablet of the poem. Many of the missing portions of the 7th tablet, including the opening lines, it has been found possible to restore from the new fragments and duplicates here published. In the following pages, a transliteration of the text of the creation series is given, which has been constructed from all the tablets and fragments now known to be inscribed with portions of the poem, together with a translation and notes. For comparison with the legends contained in the creation series, translations have been added of the other Babylonian accounts of the history of creation, and of some texts closely connected therewith. Among these mention may be made of the extracts from a Sumerian text, and from a somewhat similar one in Babylonian, referring to the creation of the moon and the sun. These are here published from a so-called practice tablet or student's exercise. A remarkable address to a mythical river, to which the creation of the world is ascribed, is also given. In the first appendix, the Assyrian commentaries to the 7th tablet are examined in detail, and some fragments of texts are described which bear a striking resemblance to the 7th tablet, and are of considerable interest for the light they throw on the literary history of the poem. Among the texts dealt with in the second appendix, one of the most interesting is a Babylonian duplicate of the tablet, which has been supposed to contain the instructions given by Marduk to man after his creation, but is now shown by the duplicate to be part of a long didactic composition containing moral precepts and to have nothing to do with the creation series. Similarly, in the fourth appendix, I have printed a copy of the text which has been commonly but erroneously supposed to refer to the Tower of Babel. The third appendix includes some hitherto unpublished astrological texts of the period of the Arsacidi, which contain astrological interpretations and explanations of episodes of the creation story. They indicate that Tiamat, in her astrological character, was regarded as a star or constellation in the neighborhood of the ecliptic, and they moreover furnish an additional proof of the identification of her monster brood with, at any rate, some of the zodiacal constellations. During the preparation of this work, I have of course consulted the translations and renderings of the creation legends, which have been made by other workers on the subject, and especially those of Professors Jensen, Zimmern, and Delietz. I have much pleasure in expressing here my indebtedness to their published works for suggestions which I have adopted from them. To Mr. R. Campbell Thompson I am indebted for the ready assistance he has afforded me during my search for new fragments and duplicates of the legends. In conclusion, my thanks are due to Dr. Wallace Budge for his friendly suggestions which I have adopted throughout the progress of the work.
L.W. King. London, July 31st, 1902. The introduction.
The great Assyrian poem or series of legends, which narrates the story of the creation of the world and man, was termed by the Assyrians and Babylonians Enuma Elish, when in the height, from the two opening words of the text. The poem consisted of some 994 lines and was divided into 7 sections, each of which was inscribed upon a separate tablet. The tablets were numbered by the Assyrian scribes, and the separate sections of the poem written upon them do not vary very much in length. The shortest tablet contains 138 lines, and the longest 146, the average length of a tablet being about 142 lines. The poem embodies the beliefs of the Babylonians and Assyrians concerning the origin of the universe. It describes the coming forth of the gods from chaos and tells the story of how the forces of disorder, represented by the primeval water gods Apsu and Tiamat, were overthrown by Ea and Marduk respectively, and how Marduk, after completing the triumph of the gods over chaos, proceeded to create the world and man. The poem is known to us from portions of several Assyrian and late Babylonian copies of the work, and from extracts from it written out upon the so-called practice lablets, or students' exercises, by pupils of the Babylonian scribes. The Assyrian copies of the work are from the great library which was founded at Nineveh by Ashur-bani-pal, king of Assyria from BC 668 to about BC 626. The Babylonian copies and extracts were inscribed during the period of the kings of the Neo-Babylonian and Persian periods, and one copy of the 7th tablet may probably be assigned to as late a date as the period of the Arsacidae. All the tablets and fragments which have hitherto been identified as inscribed with portions of the text of the poem are preserved in the British Museum. From the time of the first discovery of fragments of the poem, considerable attention has been directed towards them. For not only are the legends themselves the principal source of our knowledge of the Babylonian cosmogony, but passages in them bear a striking resemblance to the cognate narratives in the book of Genesis concerning the creation of the world. The late Mr. George Smith, who was the first to publish an account of the poem, recognized this resemblance and emphasized it in his papers on the subject in 1875. In the following year, in his work, The Chaldean Account of Genesis, he gave translations of the fragments of the poem which had been identified, and the copies which he had made of the principal fragments were published. After Smith's death, the interest in the texts which he had published did not cease, and scholars continued to produce renderings and studies of the legends. In 1883, Dr. Wallace Budge gave an account of a fine Babylonian duplicate of what proved to be the 4th tablet of the creation series. This document restored considerable portions of the narrative of the fight between Marduk and the dragon Tiamat, and added considerably to our knowledge of the story of creation and of the order in which the events related in the story took place. In the Hibbert Lectures for 1887, Professor Sayce translated the new fragment of the text, and in the following year published a complete translation of all fragments of the creation legends which had up to that time been identified. In 1890, Professor Jensen, in his studies on the Babylonian cosmogony, included a translation of the legends, together with a transliteration and a number of valuable philological notes and discussion. In 1895, Professor Zimmern published a translation of the legends, similar in plan to Sayce's earlier edition. In it, he took advantage of some recently identified fragments and duplicates and put forward a number of new renderings of difficult passages. In 1896, a 3rd German translation of the legends made its appearance. It was published by Professor Dellitz and included transliterations and descriptions of the various tablets and fragments inscribed with portions of the text. Finally, Professor Jensen published a 2nd edition of his rendering of the legends in his Mythen und Apen. This work was the best which could be prepared with the material then available. In the most recent translations of the creation series, those of Dellitz and Jensen, use was made in all of 21 separate tablets and fragments which had been identified as inscribed with portions of the text of the poem. In the present work, 34 additional tablets and fragments, inscribed with portions of the text of the creation series, have been employed. But, as 6 of these join other similar fragments, the number of separate tablets and fragments here used for the first time is reduced to 28. The total number of separate fragments of the text of the creation series is thus brought up to 49. The new material is distributed among the 7 tablets of the creation series as follows. To the 4 known fragments of the first tablet may now be added 8 others, consisting of 2 fragments of an Assyrian tablet and 4 Babylonian fragments and 2 extracts inscribed upon Babylonian practice tablets. To the 3 known fragments of the second tablet may be added 4 others, consisting of parts of 1 Assyrian and of 3 Babylonian tablets. To the 4 known fragments of the third tablet may be added 5 other, consisting of fragments of 1 Assyrian and 1 Babylonian tablet, and extracts inscribed upon 3 Babylonian practice tablets. To the 5 known fragments of the fourth tablet, only 1 new duplicate can be added, which is inscribed upon a Babylonian practice tablet. To the 3 known fragments of the fifth tablet may be added 2 others, consisting of parts of 2 Assyrian tablets. Of the sixth tablet, no fragment has previously been known, and its existence was only inferred from a fragment of the catchline preserved on copies of the fifth tablet. Fragments of the text of the sixth tablet are published for the first time in the present work from part of a Babylonian tablet. Finally, to the 2 known fragments of the seventh tablet may now be added 7 other inscribed upon 5 Assyrian fragments and portions of 2 Babylonian tablets. The new fragments of the text of the first and second tablets of the creation series throw light on the earlier episodes in the story of creation and enable us to fill up some of the gaps in the narrative. By the identification of the tablet K, 5419 C, George Smith recovered the opening lines of the first tablet, which describes the condition of things before creation, when the primeval water gods, Apsu and Tiamat, personifying chaos, mingled their waters in confusion. The text then briefly relates how to Apsu and Tiamat were born the oldest of the gods, the first pair, Lahmu and Lahamu, being followed after a long interval by Anshar and Kishar, and after a second interval by other deities, of whose names the text of K 5419 C only preserves that of Anu. George Smith perceived that this theogony had been reproduced by Damascius in his summary of the beliefs of the Babylonians concerning the creation of the world. Now, since Damascius mentions Ilinos and Eos along with Anos, it was clear that the text of the poem included a description of the birth of the elder Beli, Ilil or Ilil, and of Ea in the passage in which Anu's name occurs. But as the text inscribed upon the obverse of K 5419 C and of its Neo-Babylonian duplicate July 14, 82, 402, 24 breaks off at L. 15. The course of the story after this point has hitherto been purely a matter for conjecture. It appeared probable that the lines which followed contained a full account of the origin of the younger gods, and from the fact that Damascius states that Belos, the creator of the world, was the son of Ea, and Daki, i.e. Damkina, it has seemed concluded that at any rate special prominence was given to the birth of Bel, i.e. Marduk, who figures so prominently in the story from the close of the second tablet onwards. The new fragments of the first tablet show that the account of the birth of the gods in the creation series is even shorter than that given by Damascius, for the poem contains no mention of the birth and parentage of Marduk. After mentioning the birth of Nudimmud, i.e. Ea, the text proceeds to describe his marvelous wisdom and strength, and states that he had no rival among the gods. The birth of no other god is recorded after that of Ea, and when Marduk is introduced later on, his existence, like that of Mumu and of Gaga, appears to be tacitly assumed. It would seem, therefore, that the reference made by Damascius to Marduk's parentage was not derived from the text of the creation series, but was added by him to complete his summary of the Babylonian beliefs concerning the origin of the gods. This omission of Marduk's name from the earlier lines of the first tablet and the prominence given to that of Ea may at first sight seem strange, but it is in accordance with the other newly recovered portions of the text of the first and second tablets, which indirectly throw an interesting light on the composite character and literary history of the great poem. It will be seen that of the deities mentioned in these earlier lines, Nudimmud is the only god whose characteristics are described in detail. His birth, moreover, forms the climax to which the previous lines lead up, And after the description of his character, the story proceeds at once to relate the rebellion of the primeval gods and the part which Ea played in detecting and frustrating their plans. In fact, Ea and not Marduk is the hero of the earlier episodes of the creation story. The new fragments of the text show, moreover, that it was Apsu and not Tiamat who began the rebellion against the gods. While the newly created gods represented the birth of order and system in the universe, Apsu and Tiamat still remained in confusion and undiminished in might. Apsu, however, finding the earlier part that his slothful rest was disturbed by the new order of beings whom he had begotten, summoned Mumu, his minister, and the two went together to Tiamat and lying down before her, took counsel with her regarding the means to be adopted to restore the old order of things. It may be noted that the text contains no direct statement that it was the creation of light which caused the rebellion of the primeval gods. Apsu merely states his hatred of the Alkatu, or way of the gods, in consequence of which he can get no rest by day or night. And from the fact that he makes use of the expressions by day and by night, it may be inferred that day and night were vaguely conceived as already in existence. It was therefore the substitution of order in place of chaos which, according to the text of the poem, roused Apsu's resentment and led to his rebellion and downfall. Our knowledge of the part played by Ea in the overthrow of Apsu and Mumu is still fragmentary, but we know from L60 of the first tablet that it was he who detected the plot against the gods. It is also certain that the following 20 lines recorded the fate of Apsu and his minister, and there are clear indications that it was Ea to whom their overthrow was due. In Tablet 2 LO53E, Anshar, on learning from Ea the news of Tiamat's preparations for battle, contrasts the conquest of Mumu and Apsu with the task of opposing Tiamat, and the former achievement he implies has been accomplished by Ea. It is clear, therefore, that Ea caused the overthrow of Apsu and the capture of Mumu. But in what way he brought it about, whether by actual fighting or by his pure incantation, is still a matter for conjecture. In view of the fact that Anshar at first tried peaceful means for overcoming Tiamat before exhorting Marduk to wage battle against her, the latter supposition is the more probable of the two. The subjugation of Apsu by Ea explains his subsequent disappearance from the creation story. When Apsu is next mentioned, it is as the deep, and not as an active and Tiamat's malevolent deity. After the overthrow of Apsu, Tiamat remained unconquered, and she continued to represent in her own person the unsubdued forces of chaos. But, as at first she had not herself begun the rebellion, so now her continuation of the war against the gods was due to the prompting of another deity. The speech in which this deity urges Tiamat to avenge Apsu and Mumu occurs in Tablet 93 to 104, and inasmuch as she subsequently promoted Kingu to be the leader of her forces because he had given her support, it may be concluded that it was Kingu who now prompted her to avenge her former spouse. However, did not cease his active opposition to the forces of disorder, but continued to play the chief role on the side of the gods. He heard of Tiamat's preparations for battle. He carried the news to Anshar his father, and he was sent by him against the monster. It was only after both he and Anu had failed in their attempts to approach and appease Tiamat that Anshar appealed to Marduk to become the champion of the gods. Another point completely explained by the new fragments of the text is the reason for the repetitions which occur in the first 3 tablets of the series. It will be seen that Tablet 1.1.1.42 are repeated in Tablet 2 15.40 from 48, that Tablet 2.1.148 are repeated in Tablet 3.1552, and that Tablet 2.1566 are repeated in the same tablet 273, 124. The lines which are repeated have reference to Tiamat's preparations for battle against the gods, and to Anshar's summons of the gods in order that they may confer power on Marduk as their champion. From the new fragments of the text, we now know that the lines relating to Tiamat's preparations occur on the first tablet in the form of narrative, immediately after she had adopted Kingu's suggestion that she should avenge the overthrow of Apsu and Mumu, and that in the second tablet they are repeated by Ea in his speech to Anshar, to whom he carried the news. The context of the repetitions in the third tablet is already known. Ansharar first repeats the lines to his minister Gaga when telling him to go and summon the gods to an assembly, and later on in the tablet Gaga repeats the message word for word to Lamu and Lahamu. The constant repetition of these lines was doubtless intended to emphasize the terrible nature of the opposition which Marduk successfully overcame, and the fact that Berossus omits all mention of the part played by Ea in the earlier portions of the story is also due to the tendency of the Babylonian priests to exalt their local god at the expense of other deities. The account which we have received from Berossus of the Babylonian beliefs concerning the origin of the universe is largely taken up with a description of the mythical monsters which dwelt in the deep at a time when the world had not come into being and when darkness and water alone existed. Over these monsters, according to Berossus, reigned a woman named Amorka, who is to be identified with Tiamat, while the creatures themselves represent the monster brood which Tiamat formed to aid her in her fight against the gods. Compared with the description of the monsters, the summary from Berossus of the incidents related on the fourth tablet is not very full. The text states that Belos i.e. Belos slew Amorka, and having cleft her in twain, from one half of her he made the earth, and from the other the heavens, while he overcame the creature that were within her, i.e. the monsters of the deep. The actual account of the creation of the world by Marduk, as related in the creation series, begins towards the end of the fourth tablet, where the narrative closely agrees with the summary from Berossus. Marduk is there related to have split Tiamat into halves, and to have used one half of her as a covering for heaven. The text then goes on to state that he founded heaven, which is termed Ishara, a mansion like unto the deep in structure, and that he caused Anu, Bel, and Ea to inhabit their respective districts therein. The fifth tablet does not begin with the account of the creation of the earth, but records the fixing of the constellations of the zodiac, the founding of the year, and Marduk's charge to the moon god and the sun god, to the former of whom he entrusted the night, his instructions relating to the phases of the moon, and the relative positions of the moon and the sun during the month. The new fragments of the fifth tablet contain some interesting variants to this portion of the text, but with the exception of the last few lines of the text, they throw no light on what the missing portions of the tablet contained. In view, however, of the statement of Berossus that from one half of Tiamat Bel formed the earth, we may conjecture that an account of the creation of the earth occurred upon some part of the fifth tablet. It is also probable that the fifth tablet recorded the creation of vegetation. That this formed the subject of some portion of the poem is certain from the opening lines of the seventh tablet, where Marduk is hailed as Asari, bestower of planting, founder of sowing, creator of grain and plants, who caused the green herb to spring up, and the creation of plants and herbs would naturally follow that of the earth. From the new fragment of the sixth tablet, Nona 9266699, we know that this portion of the poem related the story of the creation of man. As at the beginning of his work of creation, Marduk is said to have devised a cunning plan while gazing upon the dead body of Tiamat. So now, before proceeding to man's creation, it is said that his heart prompted him and he devised a cunning plan. In the repetition of this phrase, we may see an indication of the importance which was ascribed to this portion of the story, and it is probable that the creation of man was regarded as the culmination of Marduk's creative work. It is interesting to note, however, that the creation of man is not related as a natural sequel to the formation of the rest of the universe, but forms the solution of a difficulty with which Marduk has been met in the course of his work as creator. To overcome this difficulty, Marduk devised the cunning plan, already referred to. The context of this passage is not very clear, but the reason for man's creation may be gathered from certain indications in the text. We learn from the beginning of the sixth tablet that Marduk devised his cunning plan after he had heard the word of the gods, and from this it is clear that the fifth tablet ends with a speech of the gods. Now, in tablet 6th, L8, Marduk states that he will create man, that the service of the gods may be established. In L9.f, however, he adds that he will change the ways of the gods, and he appears to threaten them with punishment. It may be conjectured, therefore, that after Marduk had completed the creation of the world, the gods came to him and complained that there were no shrines built in their honor, nor was there anyone to worship them. To supply this need, Marduk formed the device of creating man, but at the same time he appears to have decided to vent his wrath upon the gods because of their discontent. It is possible, however, that Ea dissuaded Marduk from punishing the gods, though he no doubt assisted him in carrying out the first part of his proposal. In LL5 FF of the 6th tablet, Marduk indicates the means he will employ for forming man, and this portion of the text corroborates in a remarkable manner the account given by Berosus of the method employed by Bel for man's creation. The text of the summary from Berosus, in the form in which it has come down to us, is not quite satisfactory, as the course of the narrative is confused. The confusion is apparent in the repetition of the description of man's creation and in the interruption of the naturalistic explanation of the slaying of Omorka. An ingenious but simple emendation of the text, however, was suggested by von Gutschmidt, which removes both these difficulties. But the passage which interrupts the naturalistic explanation and apparently describes a first creation of man, he regarded as having been transposed. But if it is placed at the end of the extract, it falls naturally into place as a summary by Eusebius of the preceding account of man's creation, which is said by Alexander Polyhistor to have been given by Berosus in the first book of his history. By adopting this emendation, we obtain the text, a clear and consecutive account of how Bel, after the creation of heaven and earth, perceived that the land was desolate, and how he ordered one of the gods to cut off his, i.e. Bel's head, and, by mixing the blood which flowed forth with earth, to create men and animals. This passage from Berosus has given rise to considerable discussion, and more than one scholar has attempted to explain away the beheading of Bel, the creator, that man might be formed from his blood. Gunkel has suggested that in the original legend, the blood of Tiamat was used for this purpose. Stucken, followed by Schein, has amended the text so that it may suggest that the head of Tiamat and not that of Bel was cut off, while Zimmern would take the original meaning of the passage to be that the god beheaded was not Bel, but the other deity whom he addressed. In L5 of the 6th tablet, however, Marduk states that he will use his own blood for creating man. The text of this passage from Berosus is thus shown to be correct, and it follows that the account which he gave of the Babylonian beliefs concerning man's creation does not require to be amended or explained away. Jensen has already suggested that the god whom Bel addressed was Ea, and the new fragment of the 6th tablet proves that this suggestion is correct. In the 6th tablet, Marduk recounts to Ea his intention of forming man and tells him the means he will employ. We may therefore conclude that it was Ea who beheaded Marduk at his request, and according to his instructions, formed mankind from his blood. Ea may thus have performed the actual work of making man, but he acted under Marduk's directions, and it is clear from Tablet 7, LO 29 and 32, that Marduk and not Ea was regarded as man's creator. According to Berosus, man was formed from the blood of Bel mixed with earth. The new fragment of the 6th tablet does not mention the mixing of the blood with earth, but it is quite possible that this detail was recounted in the subsequent narrative. On the other hand, in the Babylonian poem Marduk declares that, in addition to using his own blood, he will create bone for forming man. Berosus makes no mention of bone, but it is interesting to note that asimtu, the Assyrian word here used for bone, is doubtless the equivalent of the Hebrew word asem, bone, which occurs at the end of the narrative of the creation of woman in Gen Simtu. The blood of Bel, according to Berosus, was employed not only in man's creation but in that of animals also, and it is possible that this represents the form of the legend as it was preserved upon the 6th tablet. Though, in that case, the creation of animals would follow that of man, the opening lines of the 6th tablet prove that man's creation was regarded as the culmination of Marduk's creative work. The cunning plan which Marduk devised in order to furnish worshippers for the gods concerned the creation of man, and if that of animals followed, it must have been recorded as a subsidiary and less important act. In this connection, it may be noted that the expression ta dumamana tun era farain, which Berosus applies to the men and animals created from the blood of Bel, was probably not based on any description or episode in the creation story as recorded on the 7 tablets, but was suggested by the naturalistic interpretation of the legend furnished by Berosus himself. With reference to the creation of man, it was suggested by George Smith that the tablet K3000, 364, was a fragment of the creation series and contained the instructions given to man after his creation by Marduk. This view has been provisionally adopted by other translators of the poem, but in Appendix 2 I have shown by means of a duplicate, node 33851, that the suggestion must be given up. Apart from other reasons there enumerated, it may be stated that there would be no room upon the sixth tablet of the creation series for such a long series of moral precepts as is inscribed upon the tablets K 3364 and note 33,851. It may be that Marduk, after creating man, gave him some instructions with regard to the worship of the gods and the building of shrines in their honor, but the greater part of the text must have been taken up with other matter. The concluding lines of the sixth tablet are partly preserved, and they afford us a glimpse of the filial scene in the creation story. As the gods had previously been summoned to a solemn assembly that they might confer power upon Marduk before he set out to do battle on their behalf, so now, when he had vanquished Tiamat and had finished his work of instructions to creation, they again gathered together in Upshukinaku, their council chamber, and proceeded to magnify him by every title of honor. We thus obtain the context or setting of the seventh and last tablet of the creation series, the greater part of which consists of the hymn of praise addressed by the gods to Marduk, as the conqueror of Tiamat and the creator of the world. The hymn of the gods takes up lines 1 to 124 of the seventh tablet and consists of a series of addresses in creation, which Marduk is hailed by them under 50 titles of honor. The titles are Sumerian, not Semitic, and each is followed by one or more Assyrian phrases descriptive of Marduk, which either explain the title or are suggested by it. Of the 50 titles which the hymn contained, the following list of 11 occur in the first 47 lines of the text. Asari Ilu Asari Tabla, Ilu Tutu F Asaru Alim, Ilu Asaru Alim Tabla, Ilu Tutu F Asaru Alim Ilu Asaru Alim Tabla, Ilu Tutu F Asaru Alim Kuna, Ilu Asaru Alim Nuna Tabla, Asaru Tabla Alu Tutu F, Ilu Ilikina, Ilu Tabla Alu Tutu F, Ilu Ilikina, Ilu Tabla Alu Ilikina Tabla, Ilu Tutu F Asaru Alim Ilukina Var, Ilu Ilukina Tabla, Ilu Kina P36F. Var Elunazagazag Gaj Azag 161. Aga Azaga Azag Azagaz Elu Azag Elu Mui Elu 25 PSTS Muazag Azaga plus Azag plus PSE Elu Azag Shag Azag plus Elu Azag Emilio 35 PSPS PSF ZIC Elu ZIC I Tabli ZI41 P150 Subkur Elu Sukur Tabli Tabli 843 P1 850. In the gap in the text of the seventh tablet between Elu 47 and 15 occur the following 10 titles of Marduk, which are taken from the fragments K 13,761 and K 8,519, and its duplicate K 13,337, and from the commentary K 4,406 Ilu Aglul Diel. Aaron 13,761 Plul Diel. Var Ilu Gil Tableau 761 P Mumzilu Muammu Tablid 7 13,761. Mulil Ilu Mulil Tabla SIV 3K27 761 102 degrees. Gishkul Elu Gishkul Tabla Tabla SIV 3K27 761 102 degrees Batu 102 parts Papapida Tabla VII KI 13,761 P102L El Derma Ilu Lugal Derma Tabla 7,819 and K 4,406 Rev Kolgol A Dukuna Ilu Adununun Tabla Tabla L18 K86 Adu5 dot Adukuna Rev A L23 PP1 1PF 1626 Lugal Dulor Du Azaga Ilu Lugal Dulor Dulor Azagaga tablet. FII 8581 F 1PF M 6F. 4 other titles, occurring in the concluding portion of the text of the 7th tablet are Nibru Ilu Nibi Iri FAF, Bel Matati BELL Matati TABLE, Tabler FELLE FCA L111 PM, FCF FFN. The podcast producers put great skill and effort into producing this podcast and has for hundreds of years. Also N. Kerker, EE Bel Matati, P168.EA ILUE Adam, Paul, 7, L120, P120, AAN Var, Han Shah AA Tabla, P123, P110F, CF. Also, Ilu Hansha, P178. From the above lists it will be seen that the recovered portions of the text of the 7th tablet furnish 25 out of the 50 names of Marduk. From the list of the titles of Marduk preserved on K2000, 107 plus K6086, 58, and from Note 54,228, a parallel text to the 7th tablet, 259, 7 other names may be obtained, which were probably among those occurring in the missing portion of the text. These are Lu Kailen Ankiya, Ilu Kailen, and Ank 210 Kalgul Lash Elo, P173 Gugu Ilu Gugu K, 2107 Kalgulash, 222 P173 Mumu Ilu Mumu K, 2107 Kalgulash, P173 Gugu Ilu Mumu K, 2107 Kalgulash, P173 WELO Dudu Ila Dudu K, 2107 Col.al, 25 PAY, 173 K. Shagger No, 54,228 OBVL, 13 H 7. Inbi Lulu, Ilu Inbi Lulu Lulu, No 54,228 OBVL, 14. P178 to 6161. By these titles of honor, the gods are represented as conferring supreme power upon Marduk, and the climax is reached in Lu 116F of the 7th tablet, when the elder Bel and Ea, Marduk's father, confer their own names and power upon him. Marduk's name of Hansha, 50, by which he is finally addressed, in itself sums up and symbolizes his 50 titles. At the conclusion of these addresses, there follows an epilogue, 61 of 18 lines, in which the study of the poem is commended to mankind, and prosperity is promised to those that rejoice in Marduk and keep his works in remembrance. The story of the creation, in the form in which it has come down to us upon tablets of the 7th and later centuries before Christ, is of a distinctly composite character, and bears traces of a long process of editing and modification at the hands of the Babylonian priests. 5 principal strands may be traced, which have been combined to form the poem. These may be described as 1. The birth of the gods, parts 2. The legend of Ea and Apsu, 3. The dragon myth, 4. The actual account of creation, and 5. The hymn to Marduk, under his 50 titles. Since the poem in its present form is a glorification of Marduk as the champion of the gods and the creator of the world, it is natural that more prominence should be given to episodes in which Marduk is the hero than is assigned to other portions of the narrative in which he plays no part. Thus, the description of Tiamat and her monster brood, whom Marduk conquered, is repeated no less than 4 times, and the preparations of Marduk for battle and his actual fight with the dragon take up the greater part of the 4th tablet. On the other, and the birth of the older gods, among whom Marduk does not figure, is confined to the first 21 lines of the 1st tablet, and not more than 20 lines are given to the account of the subjugation of Apsu by Ea. That these elements should have been incorporated at all in the Babylonian version of the creation story may be explained by the fact that they serve to enhance the position of prominence subsequently attained by Marduk. Thus, the description of the birth of the older gods and of the opposition they excited among the forces of disorder was necessarily included in order to make it clear how Marduk was appointed their champion, and the account of Ea's success against Apsu served to accentuate the terrible nature of Tiamat, whom he was unable to withstand. From the latter half of the second tablet onwards, Marduk alone is the hero of the poem. The central episode of the poem is the fight between Marduk and Tiamat, and there is evidence to prove that this legend existed in other forms than that under which it occurs in the creation series. The conquest of the dragon was ascribed by the Babylonian priests to their local god, and in the poem, the death of Tiamat is made a necessary preliminary to the creation of the world. On a fragment of a tablet from Ashurbanipal's library, we possess, however, part of a copy of a legend which describes the conquest of a dragon by some deity other than Marduk. Moreover, the fight is there described as taking place not before creation, but at a time when men existed and cities had been built. In this version, men and gods are described as equally terrified at the dragon's appearance, and it was to deliver the land from the monster that one of the gods went out and slew him. This fragmentary tablet serves to prove that the dragon myth existed in more than one form in Babylonian mythology, and it is not improbable that many of the great cities of Babylonia possessed local versions of the legend, in each of which the city god figured as the hero. In the creation series, the creation of the world is narrated as the result of Marduk's conquest of the dragon, and there is no doubt that this version of the story represents the belief most generally held during the reigns of the later Assyrian and Babylonian kings. We possess, however, fragments of other legends in which the creation of the world is not connected with the death of a dragon. In one of these, which is written both in Sumerian and Babylonian, the great Babylonian cities and temples are described as coming into existence in consequence of a movement in the waters which alone existed before the creation of the world. Marduk in this version also figures as the creator, for together with the goddess Aruru, he created man by laying a reed upon the face of the waters and forming dust, which he poured out beside it. According to this version also, he is described as creating animals and vegetation. In other legends which have come down to us, not only is the story of creation unconnected with the dragon myth, but Marduk does not figure as the creator. In one of these, the gods generally are referred to as having created the heavens and the earth, and the cattle and beasts of the field, while in another, the creation of the moon and the sun is ascribed to Anu, Bel, and Ea. From the variant accounts of the story of creation and of the dragon myth, which are referred to in the preceding paragraphs, it will be clear that the priests of Babylon made use of independent legends in the composition of their great poem of creation. By assigning to Marduk the conquest of the dragon and the creation of the world, they justified his claim to the chief place among the gods. As a fit ending to the great poem, they incorporated the hymn to Marduk, consisting of addresses to him under his 50 titles. This portion of the poem is proved by the Assyrian commentary, R366, etc., as well as by fragments of parallel but not duplicate texts to have been an independent composition which had at one time no connection with the series Enuma Elish. In the poem, the hymn is placed in the mouth of the gods, who, at the end of the creation, have assembled together in Upshukking Yaku, and to it is added the epilogue of 18 lines, which completes the 7th tablet of the series. In discussing the question as to the date of the creation legends, it is necessary to distinguish clearly between the date at which the legends assume the form in which they have come down to us upon the 7 tablets of the series, and the date which may be assigned to the legends themselves, before they were incorporated in the poem. Of the actual tablets inscribed with portions of the text of the creation series, we possess none which dates from an earlier period than the 7th century BC. The tablets of this date were made for the library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh, but it is obvious that the poem was not composed in Assyria at this time. The legends in the form in which we possess them are not intended to glorify Ashur, the national god of Assyria, but Marduk, the god of Babylon, and it is clear that the scribes of Ashurbanipal merely made copies for their master of older tablets of Babylonian origin. To what earlier date we may assign the actual composition of the poem and its arrangement upon the 7 tablets is still a matter for conjecture, but it is possible to offer a conjecture with some degree of probability after an examination of the various indirect sources of evidence we possess with regard to the age of Babylonian legends in general and of the creation legends in particular. With regard to the internal evidence of date furnished by the creation legends themselves, we may note that the variant forms of the dragon myth and of the account of the creation, to which reference has already been made, presuppose many centuries of tradition, during which the legends, though derived probably from common originals, were handed down independently of one another. During this period, we may suppose that the same story was related in different cities in different ways, and that in course of time variations crept in, with the result that two or more forms of the same story were developed along different lines. The process must have been gradual, and the considerable differences which can be traced in the resultant forms of the same legend may be cited as evidence in favor of assigning an early date to the original tradition from which they were derived. Evidence as to the existence of the creation legends at least as early as the 9th century BC may be deduced from the representations of the fight between Marduk and the dragon Tiamat, which was found sculptured upon 2 limestone slabs in the temple of Ninib at Nimrud. The temple was built by Ashur-nasir-pal, who reigned from BC 884 to BC 860, and across the actual sculpture was inscribed the text of a dedication to Ninib by this king. The slab therefore furnishes direct proof of the existence of the legend more than 200 years before the formation of Ashur-banipal's library. Moreover, the fight between Marduk and Tiamat is frequently found engraved upon cylinder seals, and although the majority of such seals probably date from the later Assyrian and Persian periods, the varied treatment of the scene which they present points to the existence of variant forms of the legend, and so indirectly furnishes evidence of the early origin of the legend itself. From an examination of the Babylonian historical inscriptions, which record the setting up of statues and the making of temple furniture, we are enabled to trace back the existence of the creation legends to still earlier periods. For instance, in a text of Agum, a Babylonian king who reigned not later than the 17th century BC, we find descriptions of the figures of a dragon and of other monsters which he set up in the temple Esagil at Babylon. And in this passage we may trace an unmistakable reference to the legend of Tiamat and her monster brood. Agum also set up in the temple beside the dragon a great basin, or laver, termed in the inscription a tamtu, or sea. From the name of the laver and from its position beside the figure of the dragon, we may conclude that it was symbolical of the abyss of water personified in the creation legends by Tiamat and Apsu. Moreover, in historical inscriptions of still earlier periods, we find allusions to similar vessels termed apps, i.e. deeps or oceans, the presence of which in the temples is probably to be traced to the existence of the same traditions. The 3 classes of evidence briefly summarized above tend to show that the most important elements in the creation legends were not of late origin, but must be traced back in some form or other to remote periods, and may well date from the first half of the 3rd millennium BC, or even earlier. It remains to consider to what date we may assign the actual weaving together of these legends into the poem termed by the Babylonians and Assyrians Enuma Elish. Although, as has already been remarked, we do not possess any early copies of the text of the creation series, this is not the case with other Babylonian legends. Among the tablets found at Tel el Amarna, which date from the 15th century BC, were fragments of copies of 2 Babylonian legends, the one containing the story of Nergal and Ereshkigal, and the other inscribed with a part of the legend of Adapa and the South Wind. Both these compositions, in style and general arrangement, closely resemble the legends known from late Assyrian copies, while of the legend of Adapa, an actual fragment, though not a duplicate, exists in the library of Ashur-banipal. Fragments of legends have also been recently found in Babylonia, which date from the end of the period of the First Dynasty of Babylon, about BC 2100. And the resemblance which these documents bear to certain legends previously known from Assyrian copies only is not only of a general nature, but extends even to identity of language. Thus, one of the recovered fragments is in part a duplicate of the so-called Kuthian legend of creation. 2 others contain phrases found upon the legend of Ea and Atarhassis, while upon one of them are traces of a new version of the deluge story. Still more recently, the trustees of the British Museum have acquired 3 fragments of Babylonian legends inscribed upon tablets, which date from a still earlier period, i.e., from the period of the kings of the 2nd dynasty of Ur, before BC 2200. And to the same period is to be assigned the fragment of a legend which was published a few weeks ago by Dr. Meissner, and probably also the new fragment of the Etana myth, published last year by Father Scheil. In fact, these 5 fragments are of peculiar interest, for they show that early Semitic, as opposed to Sumerian legends, were in existence and were carefully preserved and studied in other cities of Mesopotamia than Babylon, and at a period before the rise of that city to a position of importance under the kings of the first dynasty. The evidence furnished by these recently discovered tablets with regard to the date of Babylonian legends in general may be applied to the date of the creation legends. While the origin of much of the creation legends may be traced to Sumerian sources, it is clear that the Semitic inhabitants of Mesopotamia at a very early period produced their own versions of the compositions which they borrowed, modifying and augmenting them to suit their own legends and beliefs. The connection of Marduk with the dragon myth and with the stories of the creation of the world and man may with considerable probability be assigned to the subsequent period during which Babylon gradually attained to the position of the principal city in Mesopotamia. On tablets inscribed during the reigns of kings of the first dynasty, we may therefore expect to find copies of the creation legends corresponding closely with the text of the series Enuma Elish. It is possible that the division of the poem into 7 sections, inscribed upon separate tablets, took place at a later period. But, be this as it may, we may conclude with a considerable degree of confidence that the bulk of the poem, as we know it from late Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian copies, was composed at a period not later than BC 2000. The political influence which the Babylonians exerted over neighboring nations during long periods of their history was considerable, and it is not surprising that their beliefs concerning the origin of the universe should have been partially adopted by the races with whom they came in contact. That Babylonian elements may be traced in the Phoenician cosmogony has long been admitted, but the imperfect and probably distorted form in which the latter has come down to us renders uncertain any comparison of details. Some of the beliefs concerning the creation of the world, which were current among the Egyptians, bear a more striking resemblance to the corresponding legends of Babylonia. Whether this resemblance was due to the Proto-Semitic strain, which probably existed in the ancient Egyptian race, or is to be explained as the result of later Babylonian influence from without, is yet uncertain. But, whatever explanation be adopted, it is clear that the conception of chaos as a watery mass out of which came forth successive generations of primeval gods is common to both races. It is in Hebrew literature, however, that the most striking examples of the influence of the Babylonian creation legends are to be found. The close relation existing between the Babylonian account of the creation and the narrative in Genesis I:1, 11-13 has been recognized from the time of the first discovery of the former, and the old and new points of resemblance between them may here be briefly discussed. According to each account, the existence of a watery chaos preceded the creation of the universe, and the Hebrew word tehom, translated the deep in I, too, is the equivalent of the Babylonian Tiamat, the monster of the deep personifying chaos and confusion. In the details of the creation, there is also a close resemblance between the two accounts. In the Hebrew narrative, the first act of creation is that of light, Gen 7I, 3:5, and it has been suggested that a parallel possibly existed in the Babylonian account, in that the creation of light may have been the cause of the revolt of Tiamat. From the new fragments of the poem, we now know that the rebellion of the forces of disorder, which was incited by Apsu and not Tiamat, was due not to the creation of light, but to his hatred of the way of the gods, which produced order in place of chaos. 94. A parallelism may still be found, however, in the original form of the Babylonian myth, according to which he, conqueror of the dragon, was undoubtedly a solar deity. Moreover, as has been pointed out above, 96 day and night are vaguely conceived in the poem as already in existence at the time of Apsu's revolt, so that the belief in the existence of light before the creation of the heavenly bodies is a common feature of the Hebrew and the Babylonian account. The second act of creation in the Hebrew narrative is that of a firmament which divided the waters that were under the firmament from the waters that were above the firmament. Gen I, 6:8. In the Babylonian poem, the body of Tiamat is divided by Marduk, and from one half of her he formed a covering or dome for heaven, i.e. a firmament, which kept her upper waters in place. Moreover, on the fragment S2, 1013-97, we find mention of a Tiamat, Set, and a Tiamat, Shapliti, that is, an upper Tiamat or ocean, and a lower Tiamat or ocean, and a lower Tiamat or ocean, which are the exact equivalents of the waters above and under the firmament. The third and fourth acts of creation, as narrated in Genjai 9:13, are those of the earth and of vegetation. Although no portion of the Babylonian poem has yet been recovered which contains the corresponding account, it is probable that these acts of creation were related on the fifth tablet of the series. Berosus expressly states that Bel formed the earth out of one half of Omorka's body, and as his summary of the Babylonian creation story is proved to be correct wherever it can be controlled, it is legitimate to assume that he is correct in this detail also. Omor, over, in 3 passages in the 7th tablet, the creation of the earth by Marduk is referred to. L 115 reads, "Since he created the heaven and fashioned the firm earth." 100 the new fragment K, 12,830 restored from the commentary K, 8,299 states he named the 4 quarters of the world. 101 and another new fragment K, 13,761 restored from the commentary K, 44061 definitely ascribes to Marduk the title Creator of the Earth. That the creation of vegetation by Marduk was also recorded in the poem may be concluded from the opening lines of the 7th tablet, which are inscribed on the new fragment K 2854, and with restorations from the commentary S2, etc., ascribe to him the titles Bestower of Planting, Founder of Sowing, Creator of Grain and Plants, and add that he caused the green herb to spring up. To the 5th act of creation, that of the heavenly bodies, G 314, we find an exceedingly close parallel in the opening lines of the 5th tablet of the series, 100. In the Hebrew account, lights were created in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and to be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. In the Babylonian poem also, the stars were created and the year was ordained at the same time. The 12 months were to be regulated by the stars, and the moon god was appointed to determine the days. As according to the Hebrew account 2 great lights were created in the firmament of heaven, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser to rule the night, so according to the Babylonian poem, the night was entrusted to the moon god, and the moon god's relations to the sun god are described in detail. On the 7th tablet also, the creation of heaven and the heavenly bodies is referred to L in L. 16. Marduk is stated to have established for the gods the bright heaven. 15 and L 111f. Read, "For the stars of heaven he upheld the paths, he shepherded all the gods like sheep." To the 6th and 7th acts of creation, i.e., the creation of creatures of the sea and winged fowl, and of beasts and cattle and creeping things. Gen 22, 25-25. The Babylonian poem as yet offers no parallel, for the portion of the text which refers to the creation of animals is still wanting. But since Berosus states that animals were created at the same time as man, it is probable that their creation was recorded in a missing portion either of the 5th or of the 6th tablet. If the account was on the line suggested by Berosus, an animal shared in the blood of Bel, it is clear that their creation was narrated as a subsidiary and less important episode after that of man. But although this episode is still wanting in the poem, we find references on other Assyrian creation fragments to the creation of beasts. Thus, for the creation of the creatures of the sea in Genesis, we may compare the fragmentary text K, the 3445 plus R396, which records the creation of Nehure, dolphins. And for the creation of beasts of the earth and cattle, we may compare the tablet DT41, which, after referring generally to the creation of living creatures by the gods, proceeds to classify them as the cattle and beasts of the field, and the creatures of the city, the 2, of animals. Classes referring respectively to wild and domesticated animals. The account of the creation of man, which is recorded as the 8th and last act of creation in the Hebrew account, Gen Pu I 26:31, at length finds its parallel in the Babylonian poem upon the new fragment of the 6th tablet, noted 92, 96, 629, it has already been pointed out that the Babylonian account closely follows the version of the story handed down to us from Berossus. And it may here be added that the employment by Marduk, the creator, of his own blood in the creation of man may perhaps be compared to the Hebrew account of the creation of man in the image and after the likeness of Elohim. Moreover, the use of the plural in the phrase, "let us make man," in Gen I 26 may be compared with the Babylonian narrative, which relates that Marduk imparted his purpose of forming man to his father Ea, whom he probably afterwards instructed to carry out the actual work of man's creation. A parallel to the charge which, according to the Hebrew account, Elohim gave to man and woman after their creation, has hitherto been believed to exist on the tablet K 3364, which was supposed to contain a list of the duties of man as delivered to him after his creation by Marduk. The new Babylonian duplicate of this text, known 33,851, proves that K 3364 is not part of the creation series, but is merely a tablet of moral precepts, so that its suggested resemblance to the Hebrew narrative must be given up. It is not improbable, however, that a missing portion of the sixth tablet did contain a short series of instructions by Marduk to man, since man was created with the special object of supplying the gods with worshippers and building shrines in their honor, that to these instructions to worship the gods was added the gift of dominion over beasts, birds, and vegetation is possible. But it must be pointed out that the Babylonian version of man's creation is related from the point of view of the gods, not from that of man. Although his creation forms the culmination of Marduk's work, it was conceived not as an end and aim in itself, but merely as an expedient to satisfy the discontented gods. This expedient is referred to in the seventh tablet, L29, in the phrase, "for their forgiveness," i.e., the forgiveness of the gods did he create mankind. And other passages in the seventh tablet tend to show that Marduk's mercy and goodness are extolled in his relations not to mankind but to the gods. In one passage, Marl's creation is referred to, but it is in connection with the charge that he forget not the deeds of his creator. The above considerations render it unlikely that the Babylonian poem contained an exact parallel to the exalted charge of Elohim, in which he placed the rest of creation under man's dominion. It is possible, however, that upon the new fragment of the seventh tablet, K 12830, restored from the commentary K 8299, 118, we have a reference to the superiority of man over animals in the phrase "mankind he created," and upon him understanding he bestowed. And if this be so, we may compare it to Gen I 286. Moreover, if my suggested restoration of the last word in L7 of the sixth tablet be correct, so that it may read, "I will create man who shall inhabit the earth," we may compare it to Gen I 28a, in which man is commanded to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. A suggestion has been made that the prominence given to the word of the Creator in the Hebrew account may have found its parallel in the creation by a word in the Babylonian poem. It is true that the word of Marduk had magical power and could destroy and create alike, but Marduk did not employ his word in any of his acts of creation which are at present known to us. He first conceived a cunning device, and then proceeded to carry it out by hand. The only occasion on which he did employ his word to destroy and to create is in the fourth tablet, Lelat 19:26-121, when, at the invitation of the gods, he tested his power by making a garment disappear and then appear again at the word of his mouth. The parallelism between the two accounts under this heading is not very close. The order of the separate acts of creation is also not quite the same in the two accounts. For, while in the Babylonian poem the heavenly bodies are created immediately after the formation of the firmament, in the Hebrew account their creation is postponed until after the earth and vegetation have been made. It is possible that the creation of the earth and plants has been displaced by the writer to whom the present form of the Hebrew account is due, and that the order of creation was precisely the same in the original forms of the two narratives. But even according to the present arrangement of the Hebrew account, there are several striking points of resemblance to the Babylonian poem. These may be seen in the existence of light before the creation of the heavenly bodies, in the dividing of the waters of the primeval flood by means of a firmament, also before the creation of the heavenly bodies, and in the culminating act of creation, being that of man. It would be tempting to trace the framework of the 7 days of creation, upon which the narrative in Genesis is stretched, to the influence of the 7 tablets of creation, of which we now know that the Great Creation series was composed. The reasons for the employment of the 7 days in the Hebrew account are, however, not the same which led to the arrangement of the Babylonian poem upon 7 tablets. In the one, the writer's intention is to give the original authority for the observance of the Sabbath. In the other, there appears to have been no special reason for this arrangement of the poem beyond the mystical nature of the number 7. Moreover, acts of creation are recorded on all of the first 6 days in the Hebrew narrative, while in the Babylonian poem the creation only begins at the end of the 4th tablet. The resemblance, therefore, is somewhat superficial, but it is possible that the employment of the number 7 in the 2 accounts was not fortuitous. Whether the Sabbath was of Babylonian origin, as seems probable, or not, it is clear that the writer of the narrative in Genesis was keenly interested in its propagation and its due observance. Now, in exilic and post-exilic times, the account of the creation most prevalent in Babylonia was that in the poem Enuma Elish, the text of which was at this time absolutely fixed and its arrangement upon 7 tablets invariable. That the late revival of mythology among the Jews was partly due to their actual study of the Babylonian legends at this period is sufficiently proved by the minute points of resemblance between the accounts of the deluge in Genesis and in the poem of Gilgamesh. It is probable, therefore, that the writer who was responsible for the final form of Jin II-4a was familiar with the Babylonian legend of creation in the form in which it has come down to us. The supposition, then, is perhaps not too fanciful, that the connection of the Sabbath with the story of creation was suggested by the mystical number of the tablets upon which the Babylonian poem was inscribed. Further resemblances to the Babylonian creation legends may be traced in the second Hebrew account of the creation, which follows the first in Gen 2:4 BB 7. According to this version, man was formed from the dust of the ground, which may be compared to the mixing of Bel's blood with earth, according to the account of Berosus, the use of the Creator's blood in the one account being paralleled by the employment of his breath in the other, for the purpose of giving life to the dust or earth. Earth is not mentioned in the creation of men is fully in accordance with Babylonian beliefs. Thus, according to the second Babylonian account of the creation, Marduk formed man by pouring out dust beside a reed which he had set upon the face of the waters. Clay is also related to have been employed in the creation of special men and heroes. Thus it was used in Eabani's creation by Arum, and it is related to have been mixed with divine blood for a similar purpose in the fragmentary legend Bu, May 9th, 91, 269. To the account of the creation of woman in Gen 2 18 FF, we find a new parallel in L5 of the 6th tablet of the creation series, in the use of the word isimtu, bone, corresponding to the Hebrew esim, which occurs in the phrase bone of my bones. In Gen 2:23, in addition to the Babylonian coloring of much of the story of paradise, we may now add a new parallel from the Babylonian address to a mythical river of creation, inscribed on S 1704, and the Neo-Babylonian tablet, September 18, 82, 5311. This short composition is addressed to a river, to whom the creation of all things is ascribed. And with this river, we may compare the mythical river of paradise which watered the garden, and on leaving it was divided into 4 branches. That the Hebrew river of paradise is Babylonian in character is clear, and the origin of the Babylonian river of creation is also to be found in the Euphrates, from whose waters southern Babylonia derived its great fertility. The life-giving stream of paradise is met with elsewhere in the Old Testament, as for instance in Ezekiel chapter X verse Vivi, and it is probable that we may trace its influence in the Apocalypse. It is unnecessary here to discuss in detail the evidence to prove that the Hebrew narratives of the influence on creation were ultimately derived from Babylonia and mythology. were not inherited independently by the Babylonians and Hebrews from a common Semitic ancestor. For the local Babylonian coloring of the stories and the great age to which their existence can be traced, extending back to the time of the Sumerian inhabitants of Mesopotamia, are conclusive evidence against the second alternative. On the other hand, it is equally unnecessary to cite the well-known arguments to prove the existence among the Hebrews of creation legends, similar to those of Babylonia, for centuries before the exile. The allusions to variant Hebrew forms of the Babylonian dragon myth in Amos 1:6-3, Isaiah 1:9, Psalm LX 7:14, F, and Job XX 9:4-8 and F and X 13 may be cited as sufficient proof of the early period at which the borrowing from Babylonian sources must have taken place, and the striking differences between the biblical and the known Babylonian versions of the legends prove that the exilic and post-exilic Jews must have found ready to their hand ancient Hebrew versions of the stories, and that the changes they introduced must in the main have been confined to details of arrangement and to omissions necessitated by their own more spiritual conceptions and beliefs. The discovery of the Tel el Amarna tablets proved conclusively that Babylonian influence extended throughout Egypt and Western Asia in the 15th century BC, and the existence of legends among the letters demonstrated the fact that Babylonian mythology exerted an influence coextensive with the range of her political ties and interests. We may therefore conjecture that Babylonian myths had become naturalized in Palestine before the conquest of that country by the Israelites. Many such Palestinian versions of Babylonian myths the Israelites no doubt absorbed, while during the subsequent period of the Hebrew kings Assyria and Babylonia exerted a direct influence upon them. It is clear, therefore, that at the time of Babylonian exile, the captive Jews did not find in Babylonian mythology an entirely new and unfamiliar subject, but recognized in it a series of kindred beliefs, differing much from their own in spiritual conceptions, but presenting a startling resemblance on many material points. Now that the principal problems with regard to the contents, date, and influence of the creation series, Enuma Elish, have been dealt with, it remains to describe in some detail the 49 fragments and tablets from which the text, transliterated and translated in the following pages, has been made up. After each registration number is given a reference to the published copy of the text in cuneiform texts from Babylonian tablets, etc., in the British Museum, PTXXXI, or in Volt P2 of this work, or in Appendices I and II of this volume, a brief description of each tablet is added, together with references to any previous publication of the text. After the enumeration of the known copies of each tablet, a list is given of the authorities for the separate lines of the tablet, in order to enable the reader to verify any passage in the text with as little delay as possible. The following 12 tablets and fragments are inscribed with portions of the text of the first tablet of the series. 1.K 5419C, cuneiform text PTX illegible plus I obverse, L 116 reverse, catchline and colophon, upper part of an Assyrian tablet 34, in. By 17/8 in. For earlier publications of the text, see George Smith TSEB Volume IV, The Creation Series, P3063FF. Fox Talbot, TSBB, Volume 4, VPP 428. FF. Menant, Manuel de la Longue, Assyrian PP. A. The Litz. Assyrische Lesestoke, 1st ed. P40, 2nd ed. P78, 3rd ed. P93. Leon Assyrian Manual P62, and My First Steps in Assyrian P122 F2, M2, 93, F215, July 14th, 82, 402, Kun, Texts, PTX, XRH, PL, MA, plus 1, 1, 0, 1, 16, reverse, 124, 142, and colophon. Upper part of a Neo-Babylonian tablet, 21/8 in, by 21/4 in. For an earlier publication of the text, see Pinch's Bay Babel or Rec. Volume 1-5, P30P. The fragment is probably part of the same tablet as that to which No 10 belonged. 0.3 plus 528 plus 46,000 614 vols plus 46,614 vols. IVI, obverse LL, 148, reverse, LL, 111, 142, catchline and colophon. Part of a Neo-Babylonian tablet formed from two fragments which I have joined 2:1/4 in by 5:1/2 in. This text has not been previously published. 4.No, 35,134, volume 102. Obverse LL 11, 21, no reverse part of a Neo-Babylonian tablet 1:3/8 in by 2 in. This text has not been previously published. 5.No, 36,726, volume Bal 2, PLIE. Obverse 6LO, 2833, Neo-Babylonian practice text, which forms an extract, measures 27/8 by 1:1/4 in. This text has not been previously published. 6, July 27th, 8180, Kuhn. Texts, PT 156, reverse LL 3156, reverse 118, 142, part of an Assyrian tablet, 25/8 in, by 3 in. This text, which was referred to by Pinches in the Bab, or Rec. Vault 4 P3, was used by Zimmern for his translation in Gunkel's Schöpfung und Chaos P402F. It was given in transliteration by Dalitz, Weltschöpfung Seppos P25F, and by Jensen, Mython una Eppen P. LP2 F. 7K. 3,938 Kuhn. Texts. PT XXXX.3.0 verse 33. Reverse. LL31. 128. At 142, part of an Assyrian tablet 11/6 in, by 13/4 in. This fragment was used by George Smith, Chaldean Account of Genesis, P93F, and by subsequent translators. The text was given in transliteration by Delitzsch, Weltschöpfung 27.8, K. 7,871 volume parts. I. Appendix 2. Paper 28, page 47, no reverse. Part of an Assyrian tablet 1:1/6 in, by 13/4 in. The fragment may belong to the same tablet as note. This text has not been previously published. 9 Vault 3. This text has not been previously published. 9 Vault 36,688 Vault IE plus VIE Abersal Labre Alai Kuvor 38 through 44. Part of a Neo-Babylonian practice text, the text which forms an abstract, measures 1:1/2 in by 1:1/8 in. This text has not been previously published. 10.No, 46,803. Follows ASAU. Verses 67, verses 1, 3.1, part 1. 83. Nob IO. Follows ASAU. Verses 67, verses 1, part 1. By 2AU. By 204. 46,488, volume I, Appendix 2, page 185 FF, obverse 1150, 63 no reverse. Part of an Assyrian tablet, 13/4 in, by 11/2 in, see above, no 8. This text has not been previously published. 12 pages 8, 1,818, part of a Neo-Babylonian tablet, 17/8 in, by 25/8 in. This text has not been previously published. The authorities for the lines of the first tablet are as follows.
The tablet.
LL 1-2, Nos 1, 2, and 3. LL 11, 16, Nos 1, 2, 3, and 4. LL 17 to 21, Nos 3 and 4. LO 22 to 27, No 3. LO 2830, Nos 3 and 5. LL 3132, Nos 3, 5, and 6. Led 33 Nos 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8. L 3437, Nos 3, 6, 7, and 8. L 3842, Nos 3, 6, 7, 8, and 9. L 43, Nos 3, 6, and 8. 1, 44, Nos. 3, 6, 8, and 9. L45, Nos. 3, 6, and 8. L46, 47, Nos 3, 6, 8, and 10. L43, Nos 3, 6, and 10. L49, 9, 6, and 10. L53 to 56, Nos 6, 10, and 11. L57, 63, Nos 10 and 11. LL64, 67, No, 10. LL68, 82, Wanting. 83, 92, No, 10. LO 93, 103, Nos 10 and 12. 1 to 3, 4. 1 to 10, No, 12. 111, 117, Nos. 3 and 12. L 118, Nos. 3, 6, and 12. Allah 119, 123, Nos. 3 and 6. 124, 127, Nos. 2, 3, and 6. 128, 142, Nas. 2, 3, 6, and 7. The following 7 tablets and fragments are inscribed with portions of the text of the second tablet of the series. 13. No. 40,559. Vol L2, PLS. XXI. Obverse, LL. 1, 40, verse 1. Catch line and colophone. Upper part of a Neo-Babylonian tablet. 2/5/8 in. By 4/1/6 in. This text has not been previously published. 14. No. 38,396 Kun. Texts. TT. XR. I. X. Plus. Dot. L. A5. Plus 29. Reverse. Alp. 105. P. 0. Part of a Neo-Babylonian tablet. 3/1/4 in. By 2 in. This text has not been previously published. 15 and 92,632 plus 93,048. Volume 2 PLLL PA HX /THI MOFS Languages PAI GH8. Part of a Neo-Babylonian tablet formed from 2 fragments which I have joined. 17/8 in by 16/8 in. This text has not been previously published. 16 ZK 4,832 Kun US. Texts. PT XA XI PL. 5. Obverse. 32/58. Reverse. LI. 104 1038. Part of an Assyrian tablet. 1/1/2 in. By 3/1/4 in. This tablet was known to George Smith, C. Kildor, XC of Gen P92. Its text was published by S. A. Smith, Miscellaneous Texts, plus 8th F79 178 Kun. Texts TX plus 79 179 68 Kun. Texts XA F79 75 reverse LL 76 885. Part of an Assyrian tablet 3/1/8 in by 1/3/4 in. This text, which was identified by Pinches, was given in transliteration by Delitz, Welz, Chapung Suppose, P30, and by Jensen, Mythen und Eppen 10F. 18-K, 10,008, Vald I, App, Pulse 2, PP 187F, no obverse, reverse. Probably between 11.85 and 14. Part of an Assyrian tablet, 1/5/8 in, by 2/1/4 in. This text has not been previously published. 19K 292 Kun texts. P texts. Plat 6.x/6. No obverse, reverse, lower part of an Assyrian tablet. 21/2 in by 21/4 in. The text of this tablet, which was known to George Smith, was given in transliteration by Delitzsch, Weltschöpfungsbuch, p. 31, and by Jensen, Mythen, and Epen, 10. The authorities for the lines of the second tablet are as follows.
Tidal 2.
L 1.10. No. 13.11-13. Nas 13 and 14. All 1429.9, 14, 14, and 15. 30:31. No. 13. LO Health 32:40 Nas 13 and 16. L 41:58. No. 16. L 59:68. Wanting. LL 69:85. No. 17. Between LL 86 and 103. No. 18. L 104. No. 16. LL 1P I OF 6. 14 and 16. LL 111, 113, NOS 13, 14, and 16. LA 114 out of 126. Note 904, 14.15, and 16. L 127 knows 13, 15, and 16. L 128 GM 1 knows 13, 14, 15, and 16. L. End of section 13. 13, 15, and 16. LA 1, 131, NOS 13, 15, 16, and 19. L 13 to 2 knows 13, 14, 16, and 19. LO 133-1-8 NOS 13, 16, and 19. LL 139/0489. The following 9 tablets and fragments are inscribed with portions of the text of the third tablet. 20.K 3 4773 plus July 8th 79 296 plus R 615 Kun texts PSTR1.obverse L81 85 reverse 86 138 parts of an Assyrian tablet 2:1/2 in by 8:3/8 in. The 3 fragments of this tablet which have been recovered join, but as they are much warped by fire, they have not been stuck together. For earlier publications of the text, see S.A. Smith, Miscellaneous Texts, POS 15, and My First Steps in Assyrian, POS 124, FF. The text of K 3473 had been already recognized by George Smith, C. Chald, EF, PHA, and 92F, 21 No, 93,017, April 19, 8813, Kun, text, PTXCRI, ELS 10 and 11 obverse LS 237, 77 reverse, LS 78, 1, 5, 8 part 2, 1/2 in, by 35/8 in. This text, which was identified by Pinches, was given in transliteration by Delitzsch Weltschöpfungsbuch, P35F, and by Jensen, Mythen, und Epen, page 14, FF. 22. Personalization in 18 plus. 1. 1 and 3 plus 6,000, 303 plus 6,000, 316 plus 1,429, Volet LL, verse LL, 516 52 61, reverse 1 LL 62 76, 124 plus LL 62 76, Babylonian 69, practice LL 62 10 95 Lamb, extract with a series of 5 line extracts from the text. 2 in by 3 in Avite, a copy of the text of September 18, 82, 1403, is given in Kun. Text PTXHII plus 13 pages. Since then, I have joined to it the fragment September 18, 82, 6316, and the text has not been previously published. 23.K 8524, Kun. Text PTXRII. The fragment from the end of Av, or beginning of Rev. 7586, part of an Assyrian tablet 17/8n by 13/8n. The text was referred to by pinches in the Bob, or Rex Vol. .31, 24. Last year, period 1882, 6,950 plus. January 18th, 83, 1,868, volume 2 plus. Duplicate of LL 1926 and 7784. Variants are noted in the text under LL 1926. Neo-Babylonian Practice, Tablet. The text forms an extract measuring 2/5/8 in by 11/4 in. A copy of the text of January 18th, 83, 1,868 is given in Kuhn. Text, PT text XXX12. Since then, I have joined to it the fragment, September 18th, 82, 6,950, and the text is therefore repeated in Vol. 2. This text has not been previously published. 25K 6000, 650 C. Kuhn. Texts, PT X0I plus 9. Duplicate of LL 38, 55, and 96, 113. Variants are noted in the text under LL 38, 55, part of an Assyrian tablet 3 in by 33/8 in. This text has not been previously published. 26. Note 42,285 blah IIPLLES /6/88 /obers /6888 46 570, part of a Neo-Babylonian tablet 2/1/2 in by 25/8 in. This text has not been previously published. 27. January 18th, 82, 5,448 plus. January 18th, 83, 2,116. Vol. 2 plus 2. Plus 6472, part of a Neo-Babylonian practice. Text, which forms an extract, measures 2/3/4 in by 1/1/2 in. A copy of the text of January 18th, 83, 2,116 is given in Kuhn. Texts, PTX, IRI 12-12-12. Since then, I have joined to it the fragment, September 18th, 82, 5,448, and the text is therefore repeated in Vol. 2. This text has not been previously published. 28K 8,575. CS texts, PT, XRI, PL 12. Obverse 69 plus 6 plus reverse. Reverse 687 plus 85. Part of an Assyrian tablet 2/5/8 in by 21/6 in. This text, which was identified by Basold, Catalog P9211, was given in transliteration by Delitz, Weltschöpfung Sepos, P38. The authorities for the lines of the third tablet are as follows.
Tablet 3.
144. No. 20.5, 15. No's. 20, 21, 22, 16, 18. No. 20.29, 16. No's. 20 and 24.38, 45. No's. 20 and 25.46. No's. 20, 25, and 26.52, 55. No's. 20, 21, 22, 25, and 26, 56, 63. No's. 20, 21, 22, and 26, 64, 68. No's. 20, 21, 22, 26, and 27.69, 72. No's. 20, 21, 22, 26, 27, and 28, 73, 74. No. 20, 21, 22, 23, 26, and 28.77, 84, and 84. Nos. 20, 21, 23, 24, 26, and 28.85. Nos. 20, 21, 23, 26, and 28.86. 88.95. Nos. 20 and 21.96, 155. Nos. 20, 21, and 25.106, 113. Nos. 20 and 25.124, 128, nos. 20 and 22.2737, nos. 20 and 21, 114 to 123, no. 129, 138, no. 2020, the following 6 tablets and fragments are inscribed with portions of the text of the 4th tablet. 29. No. 93,016. September 18th, 82 3737. Cune. Text. PT text XRI PA PL 14 15 44/L. 1 LS6 1.46. Upper part of a Neo-Babylonian tablet 33/8 in by 47/8 in. For an earlier publication of the text, see Budge PS BBA Vol X P86 PLs 1 6 36.30 K 3437 plus R 641 Cune. Texts PT XC X 83 plus 84 plus 84 plus 100. FS / 83. Reverse. 84 plus 100. SN 4. An earlier publication of the text of K 3437 C. George Smith TS CBA Vol IV P363F PLS 5 and 6 and of K 34447 plus R 641 C. Delitz Assyriscalis Sistuk PP 907 SF and My First Steps in Assyria PP 113.7 FF and My First Steps in Assyria PP 113.7 FF and My First 103 and 107. Part of an Assyrian tablet 1 in by 21/8 in. The text, which was identified by Pinches, was used in transliteration by Delitz Weltschöpfungsschapos, piece 41, FF, and by Jensen, Mithin, und Eppen, piece 2.22 FF. This fragment probably belongs to the same tablet as No 34, 32, 93, and 51. Kuhn. Texts. PTX, X, OPS, OTS, X, OTS, 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 OPS, 42, 54. Art of a Neo-Babylonian practice tablet, inscribed with the text divided into sections of 5 lines. 2:1/4 in by 13/4 in. This text has not been previously published. 33.K 5420C Cune. Texts PTXYX 20 plus 90. 2 reverse LL74 plus 92 reverse 93 119. Part of an Assyrian tablet 33/8 in by 31/8 in. Restorations and variants were taken from this tablet by George Smith for his edition of K 3437, see above. Note 30.34.R283C. Cune. Texts. Text X1 to 1. N. Obverse. Reverse. 1. 117. 129. Part of an Assyrian tablet 21/4 in by 15/8 in. The text, which was identified by Pinches, was given in transliteration by Delitz, Weltschöpfung, post 45. This fragment probably belongs to the same tablet as Note 31. The authorities for the lines of the 4th tablet are as follows.
Tapwatch.
35, nose. 29 and 31.46, 41, nose. 29, 30, and 31.42, 44, nose. 29, 30, 31, and 32.45, 39, nose. 30, 31, and 32.50, 94, 44, nose. 30 and 32.50, 94 and 44, 84, 30 and 33, 85 to 94, nose. 30, 32, and 33, time 95 to 100, and 33 to 118, nos. 30, 31, and 33 to 118, and 115, nos. 30, 31, and 33 to 116, nos. 29, 30, and 33 to 1817, nos. 29, 30, 33, and 34 to 101.1, 29.1, 29 and 34 to 101, and 34 to 146, no. 29.1, 34, no. 29. The following 5 tablets and fragments are inscribed with portions of the text of the 5th tablet. 35K 3,567 plus K 8,588. Kun. Texts. PTIS 1, TTIS 22, obverse -LL 126. Reverse catchline. Upper part of an Assyrian tablet. 31/8 in by 27/8 in. For earlier publications of the text, see George Smith, TSBB, valuable 563F, +2, Dalitz, Assyrialesistuka, 3rd ed., PF 94, and My First Steps in Assyrian, PF 158, SF 36.K 8526. Texts, EPT.XRILL.118 parallel 1.0 per 1, 8 parallel 1.0. Upper part of an Assyrian tablet, 11/2 in, this by 21/4 in. The text was used by George Smith for his edition of No 35, and in the other copies of that tablet mentioned above, it was given in transliteration by Dalitz Schweltschapfunktionapo Po 48F 37K 37,774 Vol I, Appendix 2, page 190 FFOVL 6, 19 no reverse. Part of an Assyrian tablet, 11/4 in by 11/2 in. This text has not been previously published. 38,641 Vol I, Appendix 2, page 192 Abverse 11:14-22. Reverse 11:128, 141, catchline, and colophon. Part of an Assyrian tablet 2/3/4 in by 3/3/8 in. This text has not been previously published. 39-K 3000, 449 AC. Text. PTTX1 plus 23 Oberse LL 66 plus 74 reverse LL 75, 87, part of an Assyrian tablet 21/2 in by 11/2 in. This text, which was first identified and translated by George Smith, called at KX of Gene 94F, was given in transliteration by Dalitz, Weltskopfungsapos P50, and the reverse by Jensen, Mython and Eppen P32. The authorities for the lines of the 5th tablet are as follows.
Tabel V.
1 to 5, nose. 35 and 36, 6. 6, 13, nose. 35, 36, and 37, 4 to 14, 18, nose. 35, 36, 37, and 38.19, nose. 35, 37, and 38.20, 22, nose. 35, 38.20, 23, 69, 35, 27, 65, wanting 66, no 39, no 39, I-27, wanting 138, no 46, I-26 and 38, 138, 137, no 38. The following fragment is inscribed with a portion of the text of the 6th tablet, 40 no 92,629, Volume 2, PLS, V and XXV and VS, obverse, 121, reverse, 138, 146, catchline and colophon, part of a Neo-Babylonian tablet 21/8 in by 21/4 in. This text has not been previously published. The following 9 tablets and fragments are inscribed with portions of the text of the 7th tablet, 41K 2,854, Vol I, Appendix I, P159. Obverse L1 per H, 18 reverse, unscribed. Upper part of an Assyrian tablet, 21/2 in by 13/4 in. This text has not been previously published. 42, note, 91, 139, plus 93,373, Volume 2, XX, XV1, 3X, Liv 41, part of a Neo-Babylonian tablet, 23/4 in by 47/8 in. This text is made up of 2 fragments which I have joined. It has not previously been published. 43.K 8, 522, Tsikun, text, PTXs, PXs, 26 and 27. Ubers, L1, P1, 51. Part of an Assyrian tablet, 2, 1/2 in, by 3, 1/4 in. For earlier publications of the text, see George Smith, TSBA, Volume 3, 306 through F, FF 53 and F4, N deletes, S Assyrisai, Lesestücke, 3rd ed, PF 95, F 44 and F 35/105, 142, part of a Neo-Babylonian tablet, 2:1/4 in, by 4:1/4 in. This text, which probably dates from the period of the Arsacidi, has not been previously published. 45-167. QS, texts, PT, XIRI8, plus 28, obverse, LL, 40 plus 47, reverse, Lenin, 1:938, part of an Assyrian tablet, 3:5/8 in, by 2 in. Restorations and variants were taken from this tablet by George Smith for his edition of K 8000, 122 see above, note 4346. K 12,830 volumes. I Appendix 1, P163, obverse or reverse, between L 47 and 15, part of an Assyrian tablet, 7/8 in, by 7/8 in. This text has not been previously published. 47K 13,761, Vol I Appendix I, P164, end. Obverse and beginning of reverse, between LL 47 and S1 500, part of an Assyrian tablet, 11/8 in meta, by 15/8 in. This text has not been previously published. 48K 8519, Vol I, Appendix 1, has 1 and 165, end of obverse and beginning of reverse between 47 and 105, part of an Assyrian tablet, 13/4 in, by 13/8 in. This text has not been previously published. 1349.K13, 337, Vol 1, I Appendix I, P1. 166 deplete of 48 between 47 and 105, part of an Assyrian tablet, 7/8 in, by 1 in. This text, which is a duplicate of K 1519, has not been previously published. The authorities for the lines of the 7th tablet are as follows.
Table 7.
1, 2, no. 41.3.13, no's. 41 and 42.14, no's. 41, 42, and 44.15, 18, no's. 41, 42, 43, and 44.19, 36, no's. 42, 43, and 44.37, no's. No's. 42, 43, and 45, 41, 45, no's. 43 and 45, between LL 47 and 105, no's. 46, 47, 48, and 49.105, no's. 43 and 44, 46, 47, no. 45.106, 8 and 44 and 49 and 4037 and no. 42, 43, 44, and 45.138, no's. 42, 44, and 45.139, 141, no's. 42 and 44 and 45, 132, no's. 44 and 49. Tablets and fragments, inscribed with portions of the text of the Creation series, belong to two distinct periods. The older class of tablets were made for the library of Ashur-banipal at Nineveh, and they are beautifully written in the Assyrian character upon tablets of fine clay. The Neo-Babylonian tablets, on the other hand, are, as a rule, less carefully written. They vary considerably in size and shape, and were made at different periods for private individuals, either for their own use, 135, or that they might be deposited in the temples as votive offerings. 136. Some of these Babylonian copies are fine specimens of their class, e.g. Na 3, 13, 21, 29, and 42, 137, and the characters and words upon them are carefully written and spaced. Others, however, consist of small, carelessly made tablets, onto which the poem is crowded. On all the tablets, whether Assyrian or Babylonian, which possess colophons, the number of the tablet in the series is carefully given. The extracts from the text which were written out by students upon practice tablets, no doubt in order to give them practice in writing and at the same time to enable them to learn the text by heart, are naturally rather rough production. One characteristic which applies to all the tablets, whether Assyrian or Neo-Babylonian, is that the text is never written in columns, but each line of the poem is written across the tablet from edge to edge. 141. As a result, the tablets are long and narrow in shape and are handled far more conveniently than broader tablets inscribed with 2 or more columns of writing on each side. The forms of the text of the poem, which were in use in the Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian periods, are identical, and it is incorrect to speak of an Assyrian and a Babylonian recension. At the time of Ashurbanipal, the text had already been definitely fixed, and with the exception of 1 or 2 phrases, the words of each line remained unchanged from that time forward. It is true that on the Babylonian tablets, the words are, as a rule, written more syllabically, but this is a general characteristic of Babylonian copies of historical and literary texts. Moreover, upon several of the more carefully written tablets, the meter is indicated by the division of the halves of each verse, an arrangement which is not met with on any of the Assyrian tablets. But both the Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian copies represent the same recension of the text, and, as has already been indicated, 143 are probably the descendants of a common Babylonian original. The following table will serve to show the number of Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian copies of each of the 7 tablets under which the 49 separate fragments of the text may be arranged. In the arrangement and interpretation of the text of the 7th tablet, we receive considerable assistance from some fragments of Assyrian commentaries which have come down to us. These were compiled by the Assyrian scribes in order to explain that composition, and they are of the greatest value for the study of the text. The contents of these documents, and their relation to the text of the 7th tablet, are described in detail in Appendix 104-C. But the following facts with regard to the size of the tablets inscribed with the commentaries, and to previous publications of portions of them, may here be conveniently given. The most important class of commentary takes the form of a bilingual list, and, as has been pointed out elsewhere, 145 presupposes the existence of a Sumerian version of part of the text of the 7th tablet of the Creation series. The text of the commentary is inscribed in a series of double columns. In the left half of each column, it gives a list of the Sumerian words, or ideograms, and in the right half, opposite each word, is added its Assyrian equivalent. It is noteworthy that the list is generally arranged in the order in which the words occur in the Assyrian text of the 7th tablet. The columns of the commentary are divided into a number of compartments or sections by horizontal lines impressed upon the clay, and the words within each compartment refer either to separate couplets or to separate lines of the 7th tablet. Of this class of commentary, we possess 6 fragments of 2 large tablets which were inscribed with 5 or 6 double columns of writing on each side. The 2 tablets are duplicates of one another, having been inscribed with the same version of the commentary. The following is a description of the 6 separate fragments, the 2 large tablets, to which they belong, being headed respectively A and B. A. 1. S. Su plus S. 980 plus S. 1416. For the text, see Vol P2 plus Lili E and L-F. Also, App IP 157 F. The fragment is the top left-hand portion of the tablet. It measures 4 in by 7 in. The text of S2 plus S900 was published in VR plus 21 No 4.4. The fragment S1416, which I have joined to the other 2, has not been previously published, A4406. For the text, see Volvault, PLS, LivAll, LivCF, also App IPA 163FF. The fragment is the top right-hand portion of the tablet. It measures 4.1/4 in by 4.7/8 in. The text has been previously published in 2 in 31 Volume 2 at 3 p.m. March 23, 82, 151. Semeti, 1a O for the text, see volpet.live.ai E+1+ IP 162. The fragment measures 13/8 by 21/8. It has not been previously published. B1R 366 plus July 19th, 80, 288 TO 293. For the text, see vol.2 PLLLIVLIF. The fragment is from the left side of the tablet. It measures 21/8 by 51/8. The fragment 3R366 was published in VR PL21 Nodine 3. July 19th, 80 293, was joined to it by Bezold, Catalog P100 608. The third fragment, July 19th, 80 288, was identified by Zimran and published in the Zeitz für Asir XEII P4101 F2K 2053. For the text, see vol PL PS Lax Lix at Cef F. Also app IPL PS at CFF 161 FHFF. This fragment measures 23/8 in by 129 to be a duplicate of SII plus S 980. See Bezold, Catalog P386, but its text has not been previously published. 3. E8299. For the text, see vol 2+1+ lxff.io/PIP1062 in. This fragment measures 3 in by 11/2 in. It has not been previously published. In addition to the above commentary in the form of a bilingual list, we possess single specimens of a second and a third class of explanatory text. The second class contains a running commentary to passages selected from other tablets of the creation series, in addition to the seventh, and is represented by the tablet S7, 747.146.+1.0. The third class, represented by the obverse of the tablet K21.07 plus K 6086 147, gives explanations of a number of titles of Marduk, several of which occur in the recovered portions of the text of the seventh tablet. Each of these two commentaries furnishes information on various points with regard to the interpretation of the seventh tablet, but, as may be supposed, they do not approach in interest the 6 fragments of the commentary of the first class. The transliteration of the text of the creation series, which is given in the following pages, has been made up from the tablets, fragments, and extracts enumerated on PPFFM, while several passages in the seventh tablet have been conjecturally restored from the Assyrian commentaries just described. In the reconstruction of the text, preference has usually been given to the readings found upon the Assyrian tablets, and the variant readings of all duplicates, both Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian, are given in the notes at the foot of the page. The lines upon each tablet of the series have been numbered, and where the numbering of a line is conjectural, it is placed within parentheses. Great assistance in the numbering of the lines of detached fragments of the text has been afforded by the fact that upon many of the Neo-Babylonian copies, every 10th line is marked with a figure 10 in the left-hand margin. In but few instances can the position of a detached fragment be accurately ascertained by its shape. The lines upon the second and fifth tablets have been conjecturally numbered up to 140. Upon the sixth tablet, the total number of lines was 136 or 146, and in view of the fact that the scribe of 92,629 has continued the text to the bottom of the reverse of the tablet, the larger number is the more probable of the two. The following is a list of the total number of lines inscribed upon each of the 7 tablets of the series. Although it is now possible to accurately estimate the number of lines contained by the creation series, there are still considerable gaps in the text of several of the tablets. The only tablets in which the whole or portions of every line are preserved are the 3rd and 4th of the series. Gaps, where the text is completely wanting, occur in Tablet 2, Lingraf Pool L, Lazarati 8, 8082, and in Tablet 2, L, Lazarati 59, 68, 148. The greater part of the text of Tablet 5 is wanting, but by roughly estimating the position of the fragment K3449A, which occurs about in the center of the text, we obtain two gaps, between Lil 26 and 66, and between Lil 28 of Tablet 6 we possess only the opening and closing lines, the rest of the text, from Lil 22 to L 137, being wanting. Finally, the gap in the text of Tablet 7, between LL 47 and L5, is partly filled up by the fragments KK, 12,830, 13,761, 8,519, 13,337, which together give portions of 39 lines. Upon some of the Babylonian copies, the meter is indicated in writing by the division of the halves of each verse, 149, and wherever this occurs upon any tablet or duplicate, the division has, as far as possible, been retained in the transliteration of the text. In accordance with the rules of Babylonian poetry, the text generally falls into couplets, the second verse frequently echoing or supplementing the first. Each of the two verses of a couplet is divided into halves, and each half verse may be further subdivided by an accented syllable. 150. This fourfold division of each verse will be apparent from the following connected. The meter of transliteration of the first half-dozen lines of the poem, in which the subdivisions of the verses are marked in accordance with the system of the Babylonian scribes as found upon the tablet Specie 2, 265a 1.f. Enuma Elish, Lachmamu Shemamu, Shoplish, Ematum Shuma, Lachzakrath 3f. Apsuma Rishatu, Zarushun Mumu, Tiamat, Moaledat, Gimrushun 5.f, Mi Shunus, Shtanicha, Ishkuma Gipara, Lakisura, Susa, Lashii. It will be seen that the second verse of each couplet balances the first, and the caesura or division in the center of each verse is well marked. The second half of verse 3 and the first half of verse 5, each of which contains only one word, may appear rather short for scansion, but the rhythm is retained by dwelling on the first part of the word and treating the suffix almost as an independent word. It is unnecessary to transliterate more of the text of the poem in this manner, as the simple meter, or rather rhythm, can be detected without difficulty from the syllabic transliteration which is given in the following pages. The first tablet, 1. When in the height heaven was not named, 2. And the earth beneath did not yet bear a name, 3. And the primeval Apsu who begat them, 4. And Chaos, Tiamat, the mother of them both, 5. Their waters were mingled together, 6. And no field was formed, no marsh was to be seen, 7. When of the gods none had been called into being, 8. And none bore a name, and no destinies, or adorned, 9. Then were created the gods in the midst of Tengad. Tengad Lahamu and Lahamu were called into being. 11. Ages increased. 12. Then Anshar and Kishar were created, and over them. 13. Long were the days. Then there came forth. 14. Anu, their son. 15. Anshar and Anu. 16. And the god Anu. 17. Nudimmud, whom his fathers begatter. 18. Abounding in all wisdom. 19. He was exceeding strong. 20. He had no rival. 21. Thus were established, and the great gods. 22. But Tiamat and Apsu were still in confusion. 23. They were troubled, and 24. And disorder. 26. And Tiamat roared. 25. Apsu was not diminished in might. 27. She smote, and their deeds. 28. Their way was evil. 29. Then Apsu, the begetter of the great gods, 30. Cried unto Momu his minister, and said unto him, 31. O Momu, thou minister that rejoicest my spirit. 32. Come unto Tiamat, let us. 33. So they went, and before Tiamat they lay down. 34. They consulted on a plan with regard to the gods. 35. Apsu opened his mouth and spake. 36. And unto Tiamat the glistening one he addressed. 36. And unto Tiamat the glistening one he addressed. 37. Their way. 38. By day I cannot rest, by night I cannot lie down in peace. 39. But I will destroy their way, I will. 40. Let there be lamentation, and let us lie down again in peace. 41. When Tiamat heard these words, 42, she raged and cried aloud. 43. Grievously, 44. She uttered a curse, and unto Apsu she spake, 45. What then shall we, 46. Let their way be made difficult, and let us lie down in peace, 47. Mumu answered and gave counsel unto Apsu, 48. And hostile to the gods was the counsel Mumu gave, 49. Come, their way is strong, but thou shalt destroy, 50. Then by day shalt thou have rest, by night shalt thou lie down in peace. 51. Apsu hearkened unto him, and his countenance grew bright, 52. Apsu Dadwin. 50. Planned evil against the gods his sons, 53. He was afraid, 54. His knees became weak, they gave way beneath him, 55. Because of the evil which their firstborn had planned, 56. There they altered, 58. Lamentation, they sat in sorrow, 57. They, 59. They, 60. Then Ea, who knoweth all that is, went up, and he beheld their muttering, 61.62.62, his pure incantation, 63.64, 65, that's misery, 66.67.8.82 are wanting, 83.84, 85, the god Anu, 86.8, Aven, 87, 88, 88, and he shall confound Tiamat, 89. Forever, 91. The evil, 92. He spake, 93. 94. He hath conquered, and 94. He, 18. 18. 91. 71. 95. Of fear, 96. We shall not lie down in peace. 0.97. Apsu is laid waste. 98. And Mumu, who were taken captive in Op. 99. Thou didst 101. Let us lie down in peace. 101. Let us lie down in peace. 103-18. Thou shalt take vengeance for them. 104-105- Unto the tempest shalt thou, and Tiamat hearkened unto the word of the bright God, and said, Thou in trust, let us wage war. 107. The gods in the midst of 108. For the gods did she create. 109. They banded themselves together, and at the sight of Tiamat they advanced. 110. They were furious. They devised mischief without resting. Night and 111. They prepared for battle, fuming and raging. 112. They joined their forces and made war. 113. Ubu, Hubu, who formed all things. 114. Made in addition, weapons invincible. She spawned monster, serpents. 115. With poison instead of blood, she filled their bodies. 117. Fierce monster vipers. She clothed with terror. 118. She decked them. She made them of lofty stature. 119. Whoever beheld them, terror overcame him. 120. Their bodies reared up, and none could withstand their attack. 121. She set up vipers and dragons and the monster Lahamu. 122. And hurricanes and raging hounds and scorpion men. 123. And mighty and fishmen and rams. 124. They bore cruel weapons without fear of the fight. 125. Her commands were mighty, could resist them. 126. After this fashion, huge of stature, she made 11 monsters. 127. Among the gods who were her sons, inasmuch as he had given her support. 128. She exalted Kingu. In their midst she raised him to power. 129. To march before the forces, to lead the host. 130. To give the battle signal, to advance to the attack. 131. To direct the battle, to control the fight. 132. Unto him she entrusted. In high Ramin she made him sit. 133. I have uttered thy spell in the assembly of the gods. I have raised thee to power. 134. The dominion over all the gods have I entrusted unto him. 135. Be thou exalted, thou my chosen spouse. 136. May they magnify thy name over all the Anunnaki. 137. She gave him the tablets of destiny. On his breast she laid them. 138. Thy command shall not be without avail, and the word of thy mouth shall be established. 139. Now, Kingu, thus exalted, having received the power of Anu, 140 degrees, the fate among the gods his sons, 141. Let the opening of your mouth quench the fire god, 142. Whoso is exalted in the battle, let him.
The second tablet.
1. Tiamat made weighty her handiwork. 2. She wrought against the gods her children. 3. Tiamat planned evil. 4. But how she had collected her, Ea, forces the god, unto Ea divulged. 5. Ea hearkened to this thing. And 6. He was afflicted and he sat in sorrow. 7. Ea was appeased in the way, and his anger was appeased. 8. And to the place of Anshar his father he took his way. 9. And standing before Anshar, the father who begat him. 10. All that Tiamat had plotted he repeated unto him. 11. Saying, Tiamat our mother hath conceived a hatred for us. 12. With all her force she rageth, full of wrath. 13. All the gods have turned to her. 14. With those whom ye created they go at her side. 15. They are banded together, and at the side of Tiamat they advance. 16. They are furious, they devise mischief without resting night and day. 17. They prepare for battle, fuming and raging. 18. They have joined their forces and are making war. 19. Ahubur, who formed all things. 22. Hath made in addition weapons invincible. She hath spawned monster serpents. 21. Sharp of tooth and merciless of fang. 22. With poison instead of blood she hath filled their bodies. 23. Fierce monster vipers she hath clothed with terror. 24. With splendor she hath decked them. She hath made them of lofty stature. 25. Whoever beholdeth them is overcome by terror. 26. Their bodies rear up and none can withstand their attack. 27. She hath set up vipers and dragons, and the 28, and hurricanes and raging hounds and scorpion men. 29. And mighty tempests and fishmen and rams. 30. They bear cruel weapons without fear of the fight. 31. Her commands are mighty, none can resist them. 32. After this fashion, huge of stature, hath she made 11 monsters. 33. Among the gods who are her sons, inasmuch as he hath given her support. 34. She hath exalted Kingu. In their midst she hath raised him to power. 35. To march before the forces, to lead the host. 36. To give the battle signal, to advance to the attack. 37. To direct the battle, to control the fight. 38. Unto him hath she entrusted. In costly raiment she hath made him sit. 39. I have uttered thy name in the assembly of the gods. I have raised thee to power. 40. Hath he untrusted? Hath he entrusted? Hath he entrusted? Hath he untrusted? The dominion over all the gods have I entrusted. 38. 41. Thou shalt make Tehut. Thou exalted, thou my chosen spouse. 42. She may the magnify thy name over all of them. 43. She hath given him the tablets of destiny. On his breast she laid them. 44. She laid them on him without a veil, and the factory shall not be without a veil, and the factory shall not be established. 45. Now Kingu, thus exalted, having received the power of Anu. 46. Decreed the fate for the gods her sons, saying. 47. Let the opening of your mouth quench the fire god. 48. God, whoso is exalted in the battle, let him display his might. 49. God was mightily in revolt. 55. He bit his lips. 51. And 50. His mind was not at peace. 52. He made a bitter lamentation. 53. Battle. 54. Thou humblest, thou. 55. Mummu and Apsu thou hast smitten. 56. But Tiamat hath exalted Kin. Gu, and where is one who can oppose her? 57. Deliberation. 58. Of the gods, Ennu. Of Munis eat, a gap of about 10 lines occurs here. Of 69, of 70, of 71, 72, his son addressed Diatma. 73, my mighty hero, 74, whose strength and whose onslaught cannot be withstood. 75, go and stand before Tiamat. 76, that her spirit may be appeased, that her heart may be merciful. 77, but if she will not hearken unto thy word. 78, shalt thou speak unto her, that she may be pacified. 79, he heard the word of his father Anshar. 80, and he directed his path to her. Towards her he took the way. 81, Anu drew nigh, he beheld the muttering of Tiamat. 82, but he could not withstand her, and he turned back. 80, Anshar. 84, he spake unto him, Antoname, upon me. A gap of about 20 lines occurs here. 104, 105, an avenger. 106, in the place of his decision. 108, he spake unto him. 109, thy father. 110, thou art my son, who maketh merciful his heart. 111, to the battle shalt thou draw nigh. 112, he that shall behold thee shall have peace. 113, and the Lord rejoiced at the word of his father. 114, and he drew nigh and stood before Anshar. 115, Anshar beheld him, and his heart was filled with joy. He kissed him on the lips, and his fear departed from him. 117, O my father, let not the word of thy lips be overcome. 118, let me go, that I may accomplish all that is in thy heart. 119, O Anshar, let not the word of thy lips be overcome. 120, let me go, that I may accomplish all that is in thy heart. 121, what man is it who hath brought thee forth to battle? 122, Tiamat, who is a woman, is armed and attacketh thee. 123, rejoice and be glad. 124, the neck of Tiamat shalt thou swiftly trample under foot. 125, rejoice and be glad. 106, the neck of Tiamat shalt thou swiftly trample under foot. 107, O my son, who knoweth all wisdom. 128, pacify, Tiamat, with thy pure incantation. 129, speedily set out upon thy way. 130, for thy blood shall not be poured out, thou shalt return again. Hontenteru, the Lord rejoiced at the word of his father. Hontenteru, his heart exulted, and unto his father he spake. Hontuata, tereta, O Lord of the gods, destiny of the great gods. 134, if I, your avenger. 135, conquer Tiamat and give you life. 136, appoint an assembly, make my fate preeminent and proclaim it. 137, in Upshukinaku seat yourselves joyfully together. 138, with my word, in place of you will I decree fate. 139, may whatsoever I do remain unaltered. 140, may the word of my lips never be changed nor made of no avail.
The third tablet.
1. Anshar opened his mouth, and 2. Unto Gaga, his minister, spake the word. 3. O Gaga, thou minis, tear that rejoicest my spirit. 4. Unto Lamu and Laamu will I send thee. 5. Thou canst attain. 6. Thou shalt cause to be brought before thee. 7. Let. Make ready for a feast at a banquet, let them sit. 9. Let them eat bread, let them mix wine. 10. There, avenger, they may decree the fate. 11. Go, Gaga, stand before them. 12. Gaga, stand before them. 13. Anshar Yerzmat, tell thee, repeat unto them, and say to Anshar your son, hath sent me. 14. The purpose of his heart he hath made known unto me. 15. He saith that Tiamat our mother hath conceived a hatred for us. 16. With all her force she rageth full of wrath. 17. All the gods have turned to her. 18. With those whom ye created, they go at her side. 19. They are banded together, and at the side of Tiamat they advance. 20. They are furious, they devise mischief without resting night and day. 21. They prepare for battle, fuming and raging, 22. They have joined their forces and are making war. 23. Umbu Huber, who formed all things. 24. Hath made in addition weapons invincible. She hath spawned monster serpents. 25. Sharp of tooth and merciless of fang. 26. With poison instead of blood she hath filled air bodies. 27. Fierce monster vipers she hath clothed with terror. 28. With splendor she hath decked them, she hath made them of lofty stature. 29. Whoever beholdeth them, terror overcometh him. 30. Their bodies rear up, and none can withstand their attack. 31. She hath set up vipers and dragons and the monster Lahamu. 32. And hurricanes and raging hounds and scorpion men. 33. And mighty tempests and fishmen and rams. 34. They bear merciless weapons without fear of the fight. 35. Her commands are mighty, none can resist them. 36. After this fashion, huge of stature, hath she made 11 monsters. 37. Among the gods who are her sons, inasmuch as he hath given her. 38. She hath exalted Kingu in their midst, she hath raised him to power. 39. To march before the forces, to lead the host. 40. To give the battle signal, to advance to the attack. 41. To direct the battle, to control the fight. 42. Unto him she entrusted. In costly raiment she hath made him sit, saying. 53. I sent Anu, but he could not withstand her. 54. Nudimud was afraid and turned back. 55. But Marduk hath set out, the director of the gods, your son. 56. To set out against Tiamat his heart hath prompted him. 57. He opened his mouth and spake unto me. 58. If I, your avenger. 59. Conquer Tiamat and give you life. 60. Appoint an assembly, make my fate preeminent and proclaim it. 61. In up Shukinaku seat yourselves joyfully together. 62. With my word in place of you will I decree fate. 63. May whatsoever I do remain unaltered. 64. May the word of my lips never be changed, nor made of no avail. 65. Hasten therefore and swiftly decree for him the fate which you bestow. 66. That he may go and fight your strong enemy. 67. Gaga went, he took his way, and 68. Humbly before Lahmu and Lahamu the gods his fathers. 69. He made obeisance and he kissed the ground at their feet. 70. He humbled himself, then he stood up and spake unto them, saying. 71. Anshar, your son hath sent me. 72. The purpose of his heart he hath made known unto me. 73. He saith that Tiamat our mother hath conceived a hatred for us. 74. With all her force she rageth, full of wrath. 75. All the gods have turned to her. 76. With those whom ye created they go at her side. 77. They are banded together, and at the side of Tiamat they advance. They are furious, they devise mischief without resting night and day. 79. They prepare for battle, fuming and raging. 82. They have joined their forces and are making war. 81. Mu'u, who formed all things. 82. Hath made in addition weapons invincible, she hath spawned monster serpents. 83. Sharp of tooth and merciless of fang. 84. With poison instead of blood she hath filled their bodies. 85. Fierce monster vipers she hath clothed with terror. 86. With splendor she hath decked them, she hath made them of lofty stature. 87. Whoever beholdeth them, terror overcometh him. 88. Their bodies rear up, and none can withstand their attack. 89. She hath set up vipers and dragons and the monster Lahamu. 90. And hurricanes and raging hounds and scorpion men. 91. And mighty tempests and fishmen and freemen. 92. They bear merciless weapons without fear of the fight. 93. Her commands are mighty, none can resist them. 94. After this fashion, huge of stature, hath she made 11 monsters. 95. Among the gods who are her sons, inasmuch as he hath given her support. 96. She hath exalted Kingu, in their midst she hath raised him to power. 97. To march before the forces, to lead the host. 98. To give the battle signal, To advance to the attack, 99. To direct the battle, to control the fight, 100. Unto him hath she entrusted, in costly raiment she hath made him sit, saying, 101. I have uttered thy spell, in the assembly of the gods, I have raised thee to power. 102. The dominion over all the gods have I entrusted unto thee. 103. Be thou exalted, thou my chosen spouse. 106. May they magnify thy name over all of them, the Anunnaki. 105. She hath given him the tablets of destiny on his breast. She laid them. 106. Thy command shall not be without avail, and the word of thy mouth shall be established. 187. Now Kingu, exalted, having received the power of Anu. 108. Decreed the fate for the gods, her sons, saying. 109. Let the opening of your mouth quench the fire god. 110. One whoso is exalted in the battle, let him display his might. 111. I sent Anu, but he could not. 112. Nudimmud was afraid and turned back. 113. But Marduk hath set out, the director of the gods, your son. 114. Tio set out against Tiamat, his heart hath prompted him. 115. He opened his mouth and spake unto me, saying. 116. If your avenger, 117.com, conquer Tiamat and give you life. 118. Appoint an assembly, make my fate preeminent and proclaim it. 119. In Upshakinyaku, seat yourselves joyfully together. 120. With my word in place of, you will, I decree fate. 121. May whatsoever do remain unaltered. 122. May the word of my lips never be changed nor made of no avail. 123. Hasten therefore and swiftly decree for him the fate which you bestow. 124. That he may go and fight your strong enemy. 125. Lahamu and Lahamu heard and cried aloud. 126. All of the Igigi wailed bitterly. 127. What has been altered so that they should... What? 128. We do not understand the deed of Tiamat. 129-3. Then did they collect and go. 131. The great gods, all of them, who decree. 131. They entered in before Anshar, they filled. 132. They kissed one another in the assembly. 133. They made ready for the feast. At the banquet they sat. 134. They ate bread, they mixed sesame wine. 135. The sweet drink, the mead, confused their. 136. They were drunk with drinking, their bodies were filled. 137. They were wholly at ease, their spirit was exalted. 138. Then for Marduk their avenger did they decree the fate.
The fourth tablet.
1. They prepared for him a lordly chamber. 2. Before his fathers as prince he took his place. 3. Thou art chiefest among the great gods. 4. Thy fate is unequaled, thy word is anew. 5. O Marduk, thou art chiefest among the great gods. 6. Thy fate is unequaled, thy word is anew. 7. Henceforth not without avail shall be thy command. 8. In thy power shall it be to exalt and to abase. 9. Established shall be the word of thy mouth, irresistible shall be thy command. 10. None among the gods shall transgress thy boundary. 11. Abundance, the desire of the shrines of the gods. 12. Shall be established in thy sanctuary, even though they lack offerings. 13. O Marduk, thou art our avenger. 14. We give thee sovereignty over the whole world. 15. Sit thou down in night, be exalted in thy command. 16. Thy weapon shall never lose its power, it shall crush thy foe. 17. O Lord, spare the life of him that putteth his trust in thee. 18. But as for the God who began the rebellion, pour out his life. 19. Then set they in their midst a garment. 20. And unto Marduk their firstborn they spake. 21. May thy fate, O Lord, be supreme among the gods. 22. To destroy and to create, speak thou the word, and thy command shall be fulfilled. 23. Command now, and let the garment vanish. 24. And speak the word again, and let the garment reappear. 25. Then he spake with his mouth, and the garment vanished. 26. Again he commanded it, and the garment reappeared. 27. When the gods, his fathers, beheld the fulfillment of his word. 28. They rejoiced, and they did homage unto him, saying, Marduk is king. 29. They bestowed upon him the scepter and the throne and the ring. 30. They give him an invincible weapon, which overwhelmeth the foe. 31. Go and cut off the life of Tiamat. 32. And let the wind carry her blood into secret places. 33. After the gods his fathers had decreed for the Lord his fate. 34. They caused him to set out on a path of prosperity and success. 35. He made ready the bow, he chose his weapon. 36. He slung a spear upon him and fastened it. 37. He raised the club, in his right hand he grasped. 37. 38. The bow and the quiver he hung at his side. 39. He set the lightning in front of him. 40. With burning flame he filled his body. 41. He made a net to enclose the inward parts of Tiamat. 42. The four winds he stationed so that nothing of her might escape. 43. The south wind and the north wind and the east wind and the west wind. 44. He brought near to the net the gift of his father, Anu. 45. He created the evil wind and the tempest and the hurricane. 46. And the fourfold wind and the sevenfold wind and the whirlwind and the wind which had no equal. 47-7. He sent forth the winds which he had created, the 7 of them. 62. And towards the Tiamat he set his face. 61. On his lips he held. 62. He grasped in his hand. 63. Then they beheld him, the gods beheld him. 64. The gods, his fathers, beheld him, the gods beheld him. 65. And the Lord drew nigh, he gazed upon the inward parts of Tiamat. 66. He perceived the muttering of Kingu, her spouse. 67. As Marduk gazed, Kingu was troubled in his gait. 68. His will was destroyed and his motions ceased. 69. And the gods, his helpers, who marched by his side, 70. Beheld their leaders, and their sight was troubled. 71. But Tiamat, she turned not her neck. 72. With lips that failed not, she uttered rebellious words. 73. Verses thy coming as Lord of the gods. 74. From their places have they gathered, in thy place are they. 75. Then the Lord, the thunderbolt, his mighty weapon. 76. And against Tiamat, who was raging, thus he sent. 77. Thou art become great, thou hast exalted thyself on high. 78. And thy heart hath prompted thee to call to battle. 79. Their fathers. 80. There thou hatest. 81. Thou hast exalted King U to be thy spouse. 82. Thou hast him that, even as Anu, he should issue decrees. 83. Thou hast followed after evil. 84. And in the gods my fathers, thou hast contrived thy wicked plan. 85. Let then thy host be equipped, let thy weapons be girded on. 86. Stand, I and thou, let us join battle. 87. When Tiamat heard these words. 88. She was like one possessed, she lost her reason. 89. Tiamat uttered wild, piercing cries. 90. She trembled and shook to her very foundations. 91. She recited an incantation, she pronounced her spell. 92. And the gods of the battle cried out for their weapons. 93. Then advanced Tiamat and Marduk, the counselor of the gods. 94. To the fight they came on, to the battle they drew nigh. 95. The Lord spread out his net and caught her. 96. And the evil wind that was behind him he let loose in her face. 97. As Tiamat opened her mouth to its full extent. 98. He drove in the evil wind, while as yet she had not shut her lips. 99. The terrible wind filled her belly. 100. And her courage was taken from her, and her mouth she opened wide. 101. He seized the spear and burst her belly. 102. He severed her inward parts, he pierced her heart. 103. He overcame her and cut off her life. 104. He cast down her body and stood upon it. 105. When he had slain Tiamat, the leader. 106. Her might was broken, her host was scattered. 107. And the gods, her helpers, who marched by her side 108, trembled, and were afraid, and turned back. 109, they took to flight to save their lives. 110, but they were surrounded so that they could not escape. 111, he took them captive, he broke their weapons. 112, in the net they were caught, and in the snare they sat down. 113, of the world they filled with cries of grief. 114, they received punishment from him, they were held in bondage. 115, and on the 11 creatures which she had filled with the power of striking terror. 116, upon the troop of devils who marched at her. 117, he brought affliction, their strength. 118, them and their opposition he trampled under his feet. 119, moreover Kingu, who had been exalted over them. 120, he conquered, and with the god Dugay he counted him. 131, he took from him the tablets of destiny that were not rightly his. 122, he sealed them with a seal, and in his own breast he laid them. 133, now after the hero Marduk had conquered and cast down his enemies. 124, and had made the arrogant foe even like. 125, and had fully established Anshar's triumph over the enemy. 126, and had attained the purpose of Nudimmud. 127, over the captive gods he strengthened his durance. 128, and unto Tiamat whom he had conquered he returned. 129, and the Lord stood upon Tiamat's hinder parts. 130, and with his merciless club he smashed her skull. 131, he cut through the channels of her blood. 132, and he made the north wind bear it away into secret places. 133, his fathers beheld, and they rejoiced and were glad. 134, presents and gifts they brought unto him. 135. Then the Lord rested, gazing upon her dead body. 136, while he divided the flesh of the and devised a cunning plan. 137, he split her up like a flat fish into 2 halves. 138, one half of her he stablished as a covering for heaven. 139, he fixed a bolt, he stationed a watchman. 140, and bade them not to let her waters come forth. 141, he passed through the heavens, he surveyed the regions thereof. 142, and over against the deep he set the dwelling of Nudimmud. 143, and the Lord measured the structure of the deep. 144, and he founded Ishara, a mansion like unto it. 145, the mansion Ishara which he created as heaven. 146, he caused Anu, Bel, and Ea in their districts to inhabit. The 5th tablet. 1. He, i.e. Marduk, made the stations for the great gods, the stars their images, as the stars of the zodiac he fixed. 3. He ordained the year, and into sections he divided it. 4. For the 12 months he fixed 3 stars. 5. After he had the days of the year, images. 6. He founded the station of Nibiru 152 to determine their bounds. 7. That none might err or go astray. 8. He set the station of Bel and Ea along with him. 9. He opened great gates on both sides. 10. He made strong the bolt on the left and on the right. 11. In the midst thereof he fixed the zenith. 12. The moon god he caused to shine forth. The night he entrusted to him. 13. He appointed him, a being of the night, to determine the days. 14. Every month without ceasing with the crown he covered him. 15. At the beginning of the month, when thou shinest upon the land. 16. Thou commandest the horns to determine 6 days. 17. And on the 7th day to divide the crown. 18. On the 14th day thou shalt stand opposite the half. 19. When the sun god on the foundation of heaven thee. 20. Thou shalt cause to and thou shalt make his. 21. Unto the path of the sun god shalt thou cause to draw nigh. 22. And on the day thou shalt stand opposite, and the sun god shalt draw nigh. 23. To traverse her way. 24. Thou shalt cause to draw nigh, and thou shalt judge the right. 25. To destroy. 26. Me essay. The three brothers open the fifth tablet. Hell, E, the fifth age, and probably form part of the fifth tablet, 60 to 70. Me, 70 to 70, from part of the fifth tablet. Me, 70, to establish gods, 74. He took, and 75. The gods, his fathers, beheld the net which he had made, 76. They beheld the bow and how its work was accomplished, 77. They praised the work which he had done, 78. Then anew raised, 79. It is 80. And thus he named the names of the bow, saying, 81. Longwood shall be one name, and the second name shall be the bowstar, and its third name shall be the bowstar in heaven, shall it. 83. Then he fixed a station for it. 84. Now after the fate of, he set a throne. 86. In heaven. 87. The following traces of the last 13 lines of the fifth tablet are taken from the reverse of K 11,641 and from the reverse of K 8,526. 128, him. 129, him. Them. 130, him. Him. 131, them. 132, him. There. May. 133, the gods spake. 134, the heavens. 153, 135, your son. 136, hath he, Before what oppressive and insanely offensive man is he? He hath cause to live. What with all his splendor does not a splendor? What, before what oppressive? Hath he, We, the sixth tablet. 1. Marduk heard the word of the gods. 2. His heart prompted him, and he devised a cunning plan. 3. He opened his mouth, and unto Ea he spake. 4. That which he had conceived in his heart he imparted unto him. 5. My blood will I take, and bone will I. 7. I will make man, that man may have 8. 7. I will create man who shall inhabit the earth, that the service of the gods may be established, and that shrines 154 may be built. 9. But I will alter the ways of the gods, and I will change their paths. 10. Together shall they be oppressed 155, and unto evil shall 11. And Ea answered him and spake the word. 12. 11. The gods I have changed. 13. And 1. 14. Shall be destroyed, and men will I. 15. And the gods. 16. And they. 17. And the gods. 18.19. The gods. 20.20. E. Anunnaki. 21. And the rest of the text is wanting 156, with the exception of the last few lines of the tablet, which read as follows. 130. 8.1. 132.1. 141. 140. 141. They rejoiced. 142. In Upshokinaku they set earth. 143. Of the heroic son, their avenger, they cried. 144. We, whom he succored. 145. They seated themselves, and in the assembly they named. 146. They all. 157. The seventh tablet. 1. O Asari, Asari bestower of planting, founder of sowing. 2. Creator of grain and plants, who caused the green herb to spring up. 3. O Asaru Alim, who is revered in the house of counsel, who aboundeth in counsel. 4. The gods paid homage, fear took hold upon them. 5. O Asaru Alim Kuna, the mighty one, the light of Lahu. 6. Who directeth the decrees of Anu, Bel, and Ea. 7. He was their patron, he ordained. There whose provision is abundance goeth forth. 9. 2 is 158, he who created them anew. 10. Should their wants be pure, then are they satisfied. 11. Should he make an incantation, then are the gods appeased. 12. Should they attack him in anger, he withstandeth. 8. E through 8. Should they attack him in anger, he withstandeth. 8. E through 8. 13. Let him therefore be exalted, and in the assembly of the gods. Let him. 14. None among the gods can let him. 15. Tutu is Z Ukina, the life of the host, of the god. 16. Who established for the gods the bright heavens? 17. He set them on their way and ordained never path. 18. Never shall his deeds be forgotten among men. 19. Tutu as Z Azag, thirdly they named, the bringer 159 of purification. 20. The god of the favoring breeze, the lord of hearing and mercy. 21. The creator of fullness and abundance, the founder of plenteousness. 22. Who increaseth all that is small. 23. In sore distress we felt his favoring breeze. 24. Let them say, let them pay reverence, let them bow in humility before him. 25. Tutu as Aga Azag may mankind, fourthly, magnify. 26. The Lord of the pure incantation, the quickener of the dead. 27. Who had mercy upon the captive gods. 28. Who removed the yoke from upon the gods his enemies. 29. For their forgiveness did he create mankind. 30. The merciful one, with whom it is to bestow life. 31. May his deeds endure, may they never be forgotten. 32. In the mouth of mankind 160, whom his hands have made. 33. Tutu as Muazag. Fifthly, his pure incantation, may their mouth proclaim. 34. Who, through his pure incantation, hath destroyed all the evil ones. 35. Shagzu, who knoweth the heart of the gods, who seeth through the innermost part. 36. The evildoer he hath not caused to go forth with him. 37. Founder of the assembly of the gods, their heart. 38. Subduer of the disobedient. 39. Who, rebellion and result. 41. Tutu as ZC the 42 who put an end to anger. Who. 43. Tutu as Sukur, thirdly, destroyer of the foe. 44. Who put their plans to confusion. 51. Who destroyed all the wicked. 42. 46. Let them. 47. 47. The following lines are taken from the fragment K. 12,830. But their position in the text is uncertain. Mankind he created, and upon him understanding. Tiamat. Distant. May. Eme. The following lines are taken from the fragment K. 13,761. Tiam. 161. The mighty one. Ajialu, the creator of the earth. Zulumu, the giver of counsel and of whatsoever. Mumu, the creator. Muli. Mulil, the heavens. Who. 4. Geshko, who brought the gods to naught. Lugal ab. Who in pap pak pat ada. Who in pap aqua. Who in yashka aqua. Hatho pap aqua kiki. Who in fin pap pat 767 and pupqua. This portion of the text was not separated by much from the preserved by K. 13,761. The chief of all lords, supreme is his might. Lugal Durma, the king. 162 of the band of the gods, the lord of rulers, who is exalted in a royal habitation, who among the gods is gloriously supreme. Adunina, the counselor of Ea, who created the gods his fathers, unto the path of whose majesty God can ever attain. In Dulazag he made it known. Pure is his dwelling. The of those without understanding is Lugal Dulazaga. Supreme is his might, there, in the midst of Tiamat. Of the battle, the numbering of the following lines is based on the marginal numbers upon 91,139, plus 93,073. 105, pod, him, 106, the star, which shineth in the heavens. 107, may he hold the beginning and the future. 163, may they 164 pay homage unto him. 108, saying, he who forced his way through the midst of Tiamat, without resting. 109, let his name be Nibiru, the Caesar of the midst. 110, for the stars of heaven he upheld the paths. 111, he shepherded all the gods like sheep. 112. He conquered Tiamat, he troubled and ended her life. 113. In the future of mankind, when the days grow old. 114. May this be heard without ceasing, may it hold sway forever. 115. Since he created the realm of heaven and fashioned the firm earth. 116. The Lord of the world, the Father Bel hath called his name. 117. This title, which all the spirits of heaven proclaimed. 118. Did Ea hear, and his spirit was rejoiced? And he said, 119. He whose name his fathers have made glorious. 120. Shall be even as I. His name shall be Ea. 121. The binding of all my decrees shall he control. 122. All my commands shall he make known. 123. By the name of 50 did the great gods. 124. Proclaim his 50 names. They made his path preeminent. 165. Epilogue. 125. Let them 166 be held in remembrance, and let the first man proclaim them. 126. Let the wise and the understanding consider them together. 127. Let the father repeat them and teach them to his son. 128. Let them be in the ears of the pastor and the shepherd. 129. Let a man rejoice in Marduk, the Lord of the gods. 130. That he may cause his land to be fruitful, and that he himself may have prosperity. 131. His word standeth fast, his command is unaltered. 132. The utterance of his mouth hath no God ever annulled. 133. He gazed in his anger, he turned not his neck. 134. When he is wroth, no God can withstand his indignation. 135. Wide is his heart, broad is his compassion. 136. The sinner and evildoer in his presence. 137. They received instruction, they spake before him. 138. Unto 139 of Marduk may the gods. 140. They. His. 141-28 was 142 and 167. Other accounts of the history of creation. 1. Another version of the dragon myth. 168 OBV. 1. The cities sighed, men. 2. Men uttered lamentation, they. 3. For their lamentation there was none to help. 4. For their grief there was none to take them by the hand. 5. Who was the dragon? 6. Tiamat. 169 was the dragon. 7. Bel in heaven hath formed. 8. 50 Caspu in his length. 1. Caspu his height. 179.6 cubits is his mouth. 12 cubits, 10 cubits, is the circuit of his ears. 11. For the space of 60 cubits he, a bird. 12. In water, 9 cubits deep he draggeth. 13. He raiseth his tail on high. 14. All the gods of heaven. 15. In heaven the gods bowed themselves down before him. 16. The border of the moon god's robe, they hasty lay grasp. 17. Who will go and slay the dragon? 171:18. And deliver the broad land from. 19. And become king over 20. Go Tishu slay the dragon. 21. And deliver the broad land from. 23. Thou hast sent me, O Lord, the raging creatures. 172 of the river. 24. But I know not of the dragon, and of the upper part of the reverse of the tablet are wanting. Rever. 1. Opened his mouth, and spake unto the god. 173. 2. Stir up cloud, and storm, and tempest. 3. The seal of thy life shalt thou set before thy face. 4. Thou shalt grasp it, and thou shalt slay the dragon. 5. He stirred up cloud and storm and tempest. 6. He set the seal of his life before his face. 7. He grasped it, and he slew the dragon. 8. For 3 years and 3 months, 1 day and 1 night, 174:9, the blood of the dragon flowed. 175. 2. a reference to the creation of the cattle. End quote. Beasts of the field, 176. 1. When the gods in their assembly had made the world, 2. And had created the heavens, and had formed the earth, 177. 3. And had brought living creatures into being, 4. And had fashioned the cattle of the field, and the beasts of the field, and the creatures of the city. 5. After they had unto the living creatures, 6. And between the beasts of the field and the creatures of the city had divided, 7. And had more than all creatures, the whole of creation, 8. Edit. Which in TFHE whole of my family, 9 edit did, 9 inji azog, 2 small creatures, 10 all the beasts he made, their form glorious, 11. The goddess Gula, 12, 1 white and 1 black, 13. 13, 1 white and 1 black, 14.14. Breathing, 3. Reference to the creation of the moon and the sun. 1. When the gods, Anna, Enlil, and Enki 2, through their sure counsel and by their great commands 3, ordained the renewal of the moon god, 4. The reappearance of the moon and the creation of the month, 5. And ordained the oracle of heaven and earth, 6. The new moon did Anna cause to appear, 7. In the midst of heaven he beheld it come forth, 8. When Anu, Bel, and Ea, 9, the great gods, through their sure counsel 10, fixed the bounds of heaven and earth, 11. And to the hands of the great gods entrusted 12, the creation of the day and the renewal of the month, which they might behold, 13. And mankind beheld the sun god 178 in the gate of his going forth, 14. In the midst of heaven and earth they duly created him. 4. Address to the river of creation. 1. O, thou river who didst create all things. 2. When the great gods dug thee out. 3. They set prosperity upon thy banks. 4. Within thee, Ea, the king of the deep, created his dwelling. 5. The deluge they sent not before thou wert. 6. Fire and wrath and splendor and terror. 7. Have Ea and Marduk presented unto thee. 8. Thou judgest the cause of mankind. 9. O river, thou art mighty. O river, thou art supreme. O river, thou art righteous. 5. Another version of the creation of the world by Margaret Obvy. 1. The holy house, the house of the gods in the holy place, had not yet been made. 2. No reed had sprung up, no tree had been created. 3. No brick had been laid, no building had been set up. 4. No house had been erected, no city had been built. 5. No city had been made, no creature had been created. 6. Nippur had not been made, Ekur had not been built. 7. Erech had not been created, Ina had not been built. 8. The deep had not been created, Eridu had not been built. 9. Of the holy house, the house of the gods, the habitation had not been made. 10. All lands were sea. 11. At that time there was a movement in the sea. 12. Then was Eridu made, and E-Sagil was built. 13. Of E-Sagil, where, in the midst of the deep, the god Lugal-Dul Azaga 181 dwelleth. 14. The city of Babylon was built, and E-Sagil was finished. 15. The gods, the Anunnaki, he 182, created at one time. 16. The holy city, the dwelling of their heart's desire, they proclaimed supreme. 17. Marduk laid a reed upon the face of the waters. 18. He formed dust and poured it out beside the reed. 19. That he might cause the gods to dwell in the habitation of their heart's desire. 20. He formed mankind. 21. The goddess Aruru, together with him, 183, created the seed of mankind. 22. The beasts of the field and living creatures in the field he formed. 20. 3. He created the Tigris and the Euphrates, and he set them in their place. 24. Their names he declared in goodly fashion. 25. The grass, the rush of the marsh, the reed, and the forest he created. 26. The green herb of the field he created. 27. The lands, the marshes, and the swamps. 28. The wild cow and her young, the wild calf, the ewe and her young, the lamb of the fold. 29. Plantations and forests. 30. The he-goat and the mountain goat, him. 31. The Lord Marduk laid in a dam by the side of the sea. 32. A swamp he made a marsh. P. 136. P. 137. 33. P. He brought into existence. 34. P. Trees he created. 35. P. He made in their place. 36. Bricks he laid. Buildings he set up. 38. 37. Cities he built. 38. 37. Creatures he created. 39. May. Nin. Ekur he made. Ianan. He built. 40. May. Nin. He built. The rest of the obverse and the beginning of the reverse of the tablet are wanting. Revi 1. The decree. 2. 3f. Thy exalted minister is Popsukal, the wise counselor of the gods. 5. May. Nin aha kudu, the daughter of Ea. 6. Purify thee with the pure censer. 7. And may she cleanse thee with cleansing fire. 8. F. With a cup of pure water from the deep shalt thou purify thy way. 10. F. By the incantation of Marduk, the king of the hosts of heaven and earth. 11. May the abundance of the land enter into thee. 12. And may thy decree be accomplished forever. 13. F. O Izida, thou glorious dwelling, thou art dear unto the hearts of Anu and Ishtar. 15. D. May, Zeta, shine like the heavens. May it be bright like the earth. May it be glorious like the heart of heaven. 16. D. May, Zeta. May be firmly established. Note: Mr. Smith described the legends in a letter to the Daily Telegraph, published on March 4, 1875. Note 6150 AP 5:4. He there gave a summary of the contents of the fragments, and in the same year he read a paper on them before the PXWII Society of Biblical Archaeology. In noting the resemblance between the Babylonian and the Hebrew legends, it was not unnatural that he should have seen a closer resemblance between them than was really the case. For instance, he traced allusions to the fall of man in what is the 7th tablet of the creation series. One tablet he interpreted as containing the instructions given by the deity to man after his creation, and another he believed to represent a version of the story of the Tower of Babel. Although these identifications were not justified, the outline which he gave of the contents of the legends was remarkably accurate. It is declared by some scholars that the general character of the larger of the creation fragments was correctly identified by Sir H.C. Rawlinson several years before. By November 1875, Smith had prepared a series of 6 plates containing copies of portions of the 1st and 5th tablets, and also of the 4th tablet, which he entitled War Between the Gods and Chaos, and of the 7th tablet, which he styled Tablet Describing the Fall. These plates were published in the Transactions of the Society of Biblical Archaeology, Volume 14, 1876, and appeared after his death. See the papers by H. Fox Talbot in TSBA Volume 3, page 349 FF, and Records of the Past, Volume 8, 1877, page 115 FF, and the translations made by Oppert in an appendix to Ledrain's Histoire d'Israël, Première Partie, 1879, 1873, Première Partie, 1879, 411 FF, and by Lenormand in Les Origines de PF, XXVII, II, 444 FF. The best discussion of the relations of the legends to the early chapters of Genesis was given by Schrader in the 2nd edition, 1883, of his Kehlenschriften und das Alte Testament, English translation 188518888. I hear from Professor Zimmern that the new edition of this work, a portion of which he is editing, will shortly make its appearance. In addition to the translations of the legends mentioned in the text, a number of papers and works containing descriptions and discussions of the creation legends have from time to time been published. Among those which have appeared during the last few years may be mentioned the translations of portions of the legends by Winkler in his Kehlenschriftliches Textbuch zum Alten Testament, TAT 1892, 88 foot, Barton's article on Tiamat, published in the Journal of the American Oriental Society, Volume 1, 1893, P1FF, and the translations and discussions of the PFF legends given in Jastro's Religion of Babylonia and Assyria, 1898, PF 407FF, in my own Babylonian Religion and Mythology, 1899, PF 53FF, by Mus Arnault in Assyrian and Babylonian Literature, edited by R. F. Harper, 1901, 282F, and by Loisi, Les Mythes Babyloniens et les Premiers Chapitres de la Genèse, 1901. Discussions of the Babylonian creation legends and their connection with the similar narratives in Genesis have been given by Lucas in Die Grundbegierde, in den Cosmogonien der Roten Wolke, 1893, page 146, by Gunkel in Schöpfung und Chaos in Urhet und Endzeit, 1895, 16 ff, by Driver in Authority and Archaeology, edited by Hogarth, 1899, pages 89 ff, and by Zimmern in Biblische und Babylonische Urgeschichte der Altorient, 1901, an exhaustive article on creation has also been contributed by Zimmern and Shane to the Encyclopaedia Biblica, Volume 8, 1899 to 938, ff, PZO No 608 VOMV.